Something's going wrong in the neighborhood. Why do we see further than we should? All around us, people unaware, like to went to sea without a care. There simply is no curve in sight, and you know we don't spend all day and night. It seems they want our minds flooded with lies. If you want to bust the globe, I know these guys. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?
Who you gonna call when the horizon flattens out? Go ahead, call them up, see what that's about. We can go around in circles trying to find us out, but if you're looking for the truth, got to find it out. NASA can't go to space, so we hit the roof. Get it, hit the roof, and it all came to light with 200 proofs. Now I'm just really sick of people lying to me. So when I tell the truth, don't come crying to me. Pick up the phone, get on the line with me. Line with me. Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call? Who you gonna call?
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, building a globe coffin out of nothing but nails. I'm your host, Bob, Xanadude60, and we are back with another great show for you today. Got a lot to talk about this week, and a lot has happened. We had the Flattoberfest event going on, and of course, Jern took over the show last week, had a fabulous discussion. Jern also opened a new show this week, which was really cool. So lots of nifty stuff to talk about, and we will be getting to that in just a couple of minutes. But first, let me go ahead and introduce my panel. First up, as always, Jern from Jernism. How you doing today, Jern?
I'd normally say I'm doing excellent, and yourself, Bob, but this past Friday before the lounge, Eru made fun of me for saying that. So I got to come up with something new. So I would say it's windy in California, as you may have heard. So the wind is bustling through, but I'm doing good. And Bob, how about you? How are you doing?
I am doing absolutely wonderful. It is a cold and snowy day in Colorado today. So, and Jern is messing with my controls, so hopefully this doesn't screw everything up. But
not me, by the way, not this Jern. The other
yeah,
Jern.
no, my son Jern. He likes to tinker, with my controls right in the middle of the show. So, if anything screws up, we'll blame it on my Jern instead of you today, Jern.
Well, I'd say with the coolest names of all time, we should be allowed to screw up anything we want.
Yes, absolutely. All right, very cool. All right, so also with us today, we have Ben, Taboo Conspiracy. And Ben, how are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing very well. It's like Denver. I guess it's cold and snowy where I'm at, but and I'm preparing the family for Halloween. But hey, I don't mean to detract too much, but what are your thoughts on Halloween? I was just been thinking about this with my family, and the idea that we have millions and millions of kids going to houses and saying trick or treat. I'm actually starting to think it's some weird sort of satanic ceremony. I mean, maybe I'm nuts or something, but think about that. I mean, kids are saying, "Give me candy, or else I'll, damage you or damage your property or do something to you." I mean, it's kind of weird. I just been pondering that and wondering whether I'm making a big mistake to even try to celebrate it, or I don't want to be a curmudgeon and ruin my kids or anything like that. But anybody have any thoughts on that? Because I just think it's interesting.
Well, yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's the other name for it is, of course, All Hallows Eve, which is a huge celebration that is done by not only Wiccans but Satanists as well. And of course, we know NASA is into it because they give us the wonderful pictures of the sun looking like a jack-o'-lantern. And what was the other thing they made look like a jack-o'-lantern? And they always seem to do it on Halloween.
No, it was the skull asteroid.
Oh, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
So you can expect that there'll be something like that coming in the next 3 days.
Yes.
So prepare yourselves. There will be a skull or pumpkin shaped asteroid coming, and yeah, they're just going, man, they're going all out on this propaganda. I don't know if people saw Buzz Aldrin throughout the first pitch, the World Series game, and then they had a commercial where he basically lies a few times to his grandson, and it's just getting to be ridiculous. You know, there was, and I didn't get a chance to record it. Maybe somebody else can find it. I don't think it was only a World Series commercial, but there's another commercial with Stephen Hawking where he tells people to not look down at their feet, but to look up in the sky, which I thought was very interesting. But I don't remember what the commercial was for. I kind of saw it in passing. I was barbecuing and happened to pop inside just to see that. But it's just getting ridiculous. The desperation, I don't know what you call it. They just have to keep pushing this stuff out there. And we're here to call it out.
Yes, we absolutely are. So yeah, Ben, I mean, I don't know. I tend to agree with you. I mean, it's a traditional thing, obviously, kind of like you know, Christmas. But even when you start looking into Christmas and those origins, that becomes highly questionable as well, right? So you know, I don't know what to think about half of these holidays. I mean, you know, I'll never forget, Jaron, when you did your expose on Christopher Columbus, right? And of course, we have a national holiday for Christopher Columbus. And here's a guy that you know, him and his men, you know, used to chase children around and cut their legs out from underneath of them for sport. You know, I mean, the guy was just a tyrant. So,
no, not to mention he went over there and then predicted an eclipse so that they would all think that he was God. Right. So, you know, that's in all his books, that he, you know, knew that there was going to be an eclipse coming while he was there. So he told everybody, hey, watch tomorrow. I'm going to block out the sun. And then that happened. And then they all bowed to him as, you know, he was a god to them. So, yeah, the guy is a dirtbag. He never stepped foot in America at all. And yet there's a whole holiday for him. And of course, he's a tyrant. He ended up being jailed. And a lot of people would chalk him up to being an idiot because obviously I think he thought he hit India from going the wrong direction. And it's just funny.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, yeah, I mean, our holidays, obviously, people are completely misled by what they are. And, you know, like anything else, anything that we're taught is good is typically bad. So, you know, Halloween is an American tradition. So, you know, it can't be good, right, Ben? That's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's just all the kids repeating the same mantra over and over again. I swear there's got to be something to it.
It's curious. It's curious as well, just to jump in, because I mean, as in anthropology, I know you haven't introduced me.
That's okay.
So I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Rodrigo. Ladies and gentlemen, Rodrigo Ferrari Nunez.
I couldn't resist because that's just so up my alley with the whole, you know, Columbus, of course, a lie, colonialists. You know, we have these residential schools. The school system comes from these guys that came over and killed all. I mean, you know, the massacres they did to the Indians. This kind of thing, you know, he could predict an eclipse, so the people would bow to him. But these people didn't know much about the stars. It's kind of sketchy, you know. Who knows? That might be just one of their just so stories they tell to make these guys sound like heroes or whatever. And of course, Halloween goes very well together with the other Thanksgiving, which is a total joke, right? And Halloween is something that's brought, I think, from Scotland, as far as I know, and this kind of celebration of the dead. So who knows what's the actual origin of this thing. I thought my first experience with it when I was in Salt Lake City as an exchange student was interesting. That everybody was basically making their whole homes into some scary ride, and they had sounds and they had smoke and they had treats, and it seemed like the whole place was in some sort of, everybody was out and the kids it seemed to be fun. Nothing sketchy happened, but it was weird. It was odd because in Brazil we have the other thing, the Carnaval, which is like people just whole week is wasted out. Where it's and there is, you know, things that of that sort, like satanic sort of figurines that they have been bringing out. That's a part that I think is kind of odd about it. Is how much is the monsters are kind of celebrated, how nice it is to be a monster and to kind of threaten people. It's like trick or treat. It's like, man, it's like it's the mafia coming on. They're saying, hey, buddy, you give me the money or I'll come by and I'll trash you, you know? It's mafia style.
Yeah. Yeah, it is nuts to say the least. So there you have it, man. I don't know. I mean,
All right.
it's difficult because all of their schoolmates obviously are celebrating it, just like everybody's celebrating Christmas and all this other stuff. Unless, of course, you're Jewish, then you've got Hanukkah. But I don't know. It really, as a parent, I've thought about that also because it rubs me the wrong way very much so. But then again, you're kind of withdrawing your children from a societal norm. So it's a tough one, tough call.
Mm. Have you
Well,
guys ever
appreciate the
seen
input.
have you guys ever seen the Sinterklaas, the thing they have here in Holland, with the black helpers, blackface people on the street? Ever seen it? They call it Black Zwarte Piet. It's there's Santa Claus, but there's this other guy, Sinterklaas, and he comes from Spain on a boat, and he visits all the towns, and he has these black helpers, like slaves kind of thing. And there's a huge controversy about this here because if you're American, basically you come here and one day suddenly there's people in blackface on the street with the red lips and the earrings, the golden earrings and stuff, the whole kind of caricature of from from the minstrel shows in the 1930s, super traumatic kind of history in the States. It's racist kind of thing, but they have that like on the street, and these are the guys that give the treat. They have people literally painted blackface and giving children treats, and that is disturbing for outsiders. They tried to do that in London, and they almost got lynched on the street. Like they tried to dress like that.
I'll bet. That's
But
crazy.
it's odd as well, and you get these tensions now.
Yep.
Who knows? Why should you keep a tradition that and how do you change it so that people don't get offended or cry, or it's complicated. It's like space in a way. If you try to take it away from them, they're going.
Well, I would say, in my opinions, there are bigger fish to fry than that. The approach I take is I just I have informed, my son Jaron, what's really going on behind that, and if he wants to go out and socialize with his friends on that, for the occasion, whatever. But I think it's important that at least we pass along to our kids the actual meaning of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I look at everything as from a retail standpoint, so I remember, having a drugstore, and it was always, 2 months before any holiday, that's all you were worried about because it increased your sales. So, of course, you get an increased boost in candy, you get an increased boost in home decor. And then as soon as you come out of that holiday, you got to set up for, Thanksgiving, and then you got to put all the stuff out for that and make sure people buy all your canning goods and your pumpkin mix and then right after that, you go into Christmas, and it's the same thing. You get an increased sales in candy and everything else, and decorations and lights, and it just goes from one to the next. It's just another way to keep sales coming, keep the economy moving.
Well, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So moving on. A couple things I wanted to talk about was, of course, last weekend, I was in South Carolina, and thank you so much for handling the show, Jaron. By the way, I really like that format, the kind of just kicking it around, and of course that was carried over to the Friday show, which I think went really well. But you guys did a great job doing that, and I got so many positive comments about it. I'm just like, well, geez, these guys aren't even going to need me anymore. So
no, don't say that. Don't say that. No, it's really called lack of preparation, no more than anything. No, I just think that. Like I said about, hanging out with Rodrigo and Iru in Amsterdam. And I know it's true of any of the conferences I've went to that when we sit down to eat lunch or dinner, there's such great conversation that has no point. It's not like we're starting from this is what we're going to talk about and everybody talks. It's just kind of a free flowing kind of conversation. And I've really enjoyed that. And we never need anything, any subject really. We can just talk forever. So I just thought it was good to do that. And yeah, people seem to enjoy it. So that's why I've kind of started that Friday lounge thing, and we'll see how it goes and what other people we invite. And, I got to find a happy medium. I don't know what it is as far as how many people can join that. You don't want 10 people there. I think a lot of people would feel that they didn't get a chance to speak much. So it's just kind of a work in progress, but thanks to everybody who joined us for our first installment.
Yeah. Very good.
But no, don't go anywhere, Bob. We need you for Globebusters. I need my topic-driven, brain as well. So
okay,
got to have a little bit of both.
All right. Well, I'll keep that up because I kind of do. Obviously I have always been all about the topic-driven show, and I think it works well for us, and it takes all kinds. Everybody does their different live feeds and different formats, and everybody's doing it their way, and it all adds up. So
there you go.
Yeah, in the lounge format, anyone who jumps in who has some material can also present a little bit. And Ido basically took over the last time, which is he's just on bang 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 with his stuff. In the Brazilian thing last night with the guys from the conference, it was interesting because of what we've been doing with the Friday Lounge. I'm talking about something. I was talking about the particles that Ido made the analysis of the particles on the ISS and so on and so forth. As I'm speaking, he already has it on the screen. It's like the movie's going, exactly what I'm talking about. He's very good at just bringing out all this information that he has collected and organized as you're doing what you're doing and able to relate that, which is incredible skill.
Yeah, Ira is great at that, and Ira will be joining us a little bit later on today. And he had it was election day, I guess, in Argentina, and everybody wants the president out, and that's kind of interesting. And speaking of that, guys, this we found absolutely astounding when we were flying to South Carolina last week. Mike from FE Corps, the president of FE Corps, Mike Kavanaugh, was sending us updates of what was going on in the Netherlands, which is astounding. It did not make the mainstream news or anything like that, but apparently the farmers have been getting taxed and all this crazy stuff going on, and they know full well the stated reason is because of global warming, et cetera, and the farmers know it's bullshit, right? They know this, and so they're just trying to impress these Orwellian measures on the farmers, and so the farmers decided, okay, here's what we're going to do, and they literally had tens of thousands of tractors that rolled in on The Hague, right?
That's right.
And they were, I mean, and the police that were there, they were literally dumping bullshit on them, literally. and it was quite a spectacle. He kept giving us little updates about that, and I was just absolutely blown away. But they essentially were calling for the resignation of I guess not only the president or prime minister or whatever it is there, but also their equivalent of our Congress. But they want these people out because they know that this whole global warming thing is complete horse manure. And boy, they went after them in a big way. And of course, you didn't hear a damn thing about it in mainstream news. What a surprise, right? So anyway, so yeah, that was something very interesting, and hopefully maybe we can cover that a little bit at some point, but not today. Got a lot of other things to cover. But getting back to Flattoberfest, Karen B's event went really, really well in South Carolina, in Greenville. And we had Mark Sargent open it up, and then I followed him. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but fortunately I was able to work through those for those guys because honestly, their sound and video crew is pretty clueless, but we managed to get them worked through it. And so Rob Skeeb and I were able to do our presentations. And the things that I covered there were the inverse square law of light and also the inverse law of angular size. I talked about the sun angle that was required to bounce light from the ISS down to the observer eye, and a few other things, the kind of obvious things that I talk about a lot. And so from there, I went to some of the things like the idea of the ISS traveling, at 17,500 miles an hour, which is 5 miles a second. And it being the size of a 747, essentially, it's up 250 miles, and it's absurd that they even tell us that we should be able to see it at that height. But when you look at Spot the Station, and this is something I want to go into today a little bit because I had a great idea. So when you look at Spot the Station here, let me put this on pause. Go to Spot the Station, and of course, many of you have seen this. It's the NASA website. That allows you to type in your zip code, and it will show you all the places and all the times that you can see the ISS going over. So I was talking about the absurdity of the fact that this station is traveling at 5 miles per second. Many times it has, on the average, at least a 6-minute view time. And of course, in that 6-minute view time, traveling at 5 miles a second, you're able to see it literally for nearly 2,000 miles, right? That's absurd. Plus the 250 miles that is up in the sky anyway. And then, of course, you also have to know that it doesn't necessarily go directly over the top of you, but goes at an arc at some distance away from you, right? So really, you start adding all these up, and the fact that sometimes you can see it up to 8 minutes, whatever. You're talking about supposedly they want you to believe that you can see the International Space Station, for about a 3,000-mile trek across the sky. And during that entire time, somehow, even though it is only 250 miles up, which is 0.03% of the diameter of the Earth, somehow the sun is able to get to the underside of it and be able to have enough of an angle to reflect that light down into your eye on the ground. Right? Oh my God, how much more stupid can it possibly get? Why do people believe this? How can they possibly believe this? And so, these are some of the things that I was covering. But so here's the thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, because as you see, if you look at this right here on the Spot the Station, right? You can enter in any zip code, and they have all these areas of places that you can see it. And what I find interesting is they are kind of dispersed out in different areas, and you can zoom in tighter and tighter. But for example, if you go to number 8 or number 12 here, you may be able to see the object on number 12, but number 8 doesn't show it until it comes around like on the next day. Or maybe number 7 over here might be able to see it, but right here at number 4, you can't see it till it comes around 1 or 2 days later. Well, I started thinking about that, guys, and it's like, wait a minute. If we can supposedly see this ISS, in some instances for up to 3,000 miles away, why can't everybody literally see it all across the United States at the same time, and track it across the sky? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it's not 250 miles up. It's not traveling at that speed. And more than likely what is happening is, like I've thought many times before, it is either some sort of a holographic type of projection, which would require it to be well within the atmosphere, understanding the strontium, barium, and aluminum, chemtrails, assuming that's it. Or it could be something like a U-2 spy plane that is outfitted with ultrabright LEDs on the bottom, because honestly, it doesn't seem like it goes any faster than any commercial airliner, going around 550 miles an hour, right? And, I live by an airport, so I watch this all the time. I've watched planes my whole life, and most people actually do. So, to me, it's much more likely that it's probably a series of airplanes that NASA sends up, to be over areas at certain times. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if this is the case, right, then we should be able to organize groups that can actually spot the station, and somebody maybe a few miles away, well, why wouldn't they be able to spot it? Because remember, NASA wants us to believe that we have a continuous sight line of it for nearly 3,000 miles and almost always for 2,000 miles with those 6-minute figures, right? For example, so let me put in my place here. So we'll go to Denver, Colorado. All right. And we'll look at this one right here, and we'll go view sighting opportunities. All right, and so what does it give us? So here we have 6 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and all these different days, right? So Denver has a whole lot of sightings, but interestingly enough, if I put in a zip code for some place that's just a little bit to the north of me, that isn't in those main areas, well, the sightings are much, much less. And it's like, wait a minute, they're only a few miles away. Why in the world, if I can see it for a 2,000 mile plus trek, can't these people just a few miles north of me see this object that's supposedly 250 miles up, right? You starting to follow where I'm going with this, right? This is
yes, their drone schedule, right? The different schedules, so they map the whole country, and they have their different things flying different places to make that impression, give that impression.
Exactly. So how do we bust them at it? Well, the way we bust them at it is we coordinate an effort of people in a same general area that should be able to see this object, that supposedly can be seen for 2,000 plus miles, and just see if it's actually possible. And if they do spot it, what is the distance on
Position
the
in the sky.
horizon? Exactly. What's the
Mhm.
position in the sky? And we can plot this out. And I think what we're going to find out, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm spitballing here, but I'm thinking that what we're going to find out is this object isn't any more than maybe 60, 70,000 feet up in the air. And they're doing this in a completely different way. But one thing would be for certain is that if it was 250 miles up, if we were to somebody runs a distance to the horizon calculator, you should be able to see that object at least that distance away, right, from 250 miles distance to the horizon, because that's the way light works. So, what do you guys think about this idea?
Jared?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth doing. I'm not sure what we would see. Are you talking about doing it all the way across, just picking different places and then everybody observing?
Yeah, well, anybody in a certain area, like I said, like if I did it here in Colorado, we have lots of flat earthers here in Colorado, in and around the Denver area, and we should be able to, like Chris Van Maitre, for example, is I don't know, about 20 miles north of me, and so theoretically he should be able to see what I see. But now we also know that if it's an airplane at that height, then 20 miles away may not, you may not be able to see that, because I certainly can't see an aircraft much beyond 20, 30 miles as it goes away from us, here in Denver.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
so yeah, keep it on a local basis. But, if everybody all around the country is doing this, and remember, if I'm looking at it and it goes over me at some point in Denver at 5 miles a second, and I say, okay, 2 minutes down the road, it should be over Kentucky or something like that, right? Then,
Right.
Yeah, this is a kind of experiment, really. It's like, is the ISS really where they say it is? Well, let's test it. And then if you have people in the general area, no matter where you get the sighting, if it's simultaneous, if you know the time and you guys are clocking that, and you just track the position in the sky, you should be able to triangulate it. And it has to be at the position where they say it is with the speed that they, it has to make sense in that way. And I bet it won't. Like, that's what you're saying. So it's.
yeah, I bet it won't either. In fact, I think it's going to be so full of holes that, and this is something that we can take to the public, right? This is something that, I think if we wrap it up together and say, look at this experiment, kind of explain the premise, and maybe I didn't explain it too good here today, but I'm sure I can refine this argument and put it in an easily digestible argument. But to me, it makes perfect sense, because, again, they're telling us that we can see this damn object 250 miles up, and that should give us a huge radius of vision for this whatever it is, the thing that's allegedly the ISS. And
Right. I just think the ISS is so much their baby. It's so important to them that I don't think that they would get the math wrong on it. But I would love to see it.
well, it's not even an issue being the math. The math, what they're going to give us in these sighting schedules is going to be, for example, if it is what I believe it is, as far as an outfitted U-2, right? Then obviously they have to have fleets of these things that are going up at different times. But again, if I'm able to see it at such and such an angle, and 20 miles away, Chris sees that same object, but it is far away from.
Got you. The only time that I've ever done that experiment was when my wife and I were doing the 8 mile test in Monterey Bay.
That's what gave me the idea.
Right. But what I remember on that is that the ISS passed the exact same spot in the sky, and we weren't really doing the test, perfectly. It was more of, is that the ISS? Oh, it is the ISS. All right, we're watching it, and then it was about to cross the Big Dipper, and I looked up and I said, oh, right now it just crossed exactly on the second star of the Big Dipper. My wife was 8 miles away, and she said, wait, that's just what it did to me too. And I said, it went over the star, and she said it went over the exact star. So that was all that we got out of it. Of course, it was flying away.
And how far apart were you again?
8 miles.
Yeah, see, that's doable. That's absolutely doable. So yeah, that I can buy. But when you start
But
getting,
your confirmation of the simultaneity was more on the phone, right? You didn't have we were not filming at the same time, so you could check the time on the phones and things like that. You're not very. It was just a spur of the moment kind of thing.
Yes, we were just having a conversation on the phone. So
Mhm.
whether it passed at the exact same time, no, it could have been a few seconds different because there was no way other than me just saying, "Oh, I just saw it pass the second star," and she said, "Oh, it just passed the second star here too."
Mhm.
So it could have been a few seconds different. But I
Mhm.
think it's something we can definitely set up.
Yeah,
So I think it's a good idea.
and a way that we can coordinate that, guys, and I'll give you another plug here,
Well,
is
what? Just on this same thing, Bob. What caught my radar on October 7th? I was making some notes. I realized that the International Space Station is always on top of these natural disasters, right? It always manages to. They always manage to have it right on top of this. Um, Hurricane Dorian was one of the ones this year. So they're right on top of it. They make a bunch of propaganda about it. And then it happened that it also filmed the fires in Brazil over the Amazon from the south
Mhm.
somehow on September 4th. So I was thinking, how can it, how is this orbit that goes, sometimes it doesn't go over Brazil, but whenever they want it, they go right over Brazil, but then they go over Russia because when you look, the orbits that they show, those little kind of those waves things that they have, apparently it varies so much that it can go everywhere. But I was wondering, how much does it vary so that it can go from, catching the hurricane, um, and then the border of China of Russia, which
Right.
they say they did, and
Well,
then Brazil.
right. Well, one thing we noticed, and I actually covered this on, it was one of the hurricanes or something, but they were making a big deal out of, oh, you could see this hurricane from the ISS. But the bizarre thing about it is, the so-called live feed from the ISS seemed to stop moving around the Earth. It just kind of froze, and it was there for several minutes, and it wasn't changing
Right.
perspective. And I'm like, guys, do you see a problem with this? And I actually covered that on Globebusters. So
Yeah, aren't they supposed to be going how many sunsets and whatever? They always talk about there's that stupid song with Chris Hadfield that he sings all the numbers and the sunsets and whatnot, and then suddenly it goes slow just to show the the hurricane, right?
yeah,
Ugh.
it's utterly ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, that's my idea. And one of the ways, and I just got an email from the developers of this particular app that is on Zoom Truth called the FE People Finder. And if you have not signed up for that, it's kind of a neat way for people to coordinate. And one of the emails I got this morning was talking about, well, the app has this built-in ability for people to coordinate with each other on events. Well, I thought, whoa, that's perfect, right? Everybody here in the Denver area or Colorado area can use this FE People Finder to connect with each other. And then report their observations. Just have one person that maybe would be in charge of collecting that data. And then if you do that, I'll be more than happy to cover it on Globebusters because I really think that this is going to pound yet another nail in the coffin of NASA. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Imagine if you can coordinate all these people in the map. That's why you're wondering, right? What can happen with the observations?
yeah, exactly. And at different times, and I think there's probably even going to be some fairly major non sequitur things, as far as whether or not what I can see here in Colorado to say somebody what they are seeing in the UK or England, right? I don't know that. I'm just guessing, but Jaron's right. NASA's usually really good at the math, but the thing is they can't be everywhere at once, and they do make mistakes. And this is the kind of things that I think we can really nail them on.
I thought that people had already questioned the speed that it goes through the horizon that wouldn't match the altitude. That was a problem I heard.
Yeah, well, that's part of it. And I've been harping on that for forever. I mean, the stupid thing's going 5 miles a second, 10 times the speed of a bullet, and it just lumbers across the sky. And of course, the
Yeah.
Glober excuse for that is, well, it's because it's so far away. It's like, I don't think so. And again, there's so many other things. Like, how is it that it never seems to change angular size or brightness, very much as it travels this entire 6 to 8 minutes as it's rambling across your sky. And isn't it amazing that no matter where it rises on the horizon or sets on the horizon, it's just as bright as the next night or whatever. It's just like, wow, that's absolutely amazing. It completely
It's
defies
some
the laws
amazing
of geometry.
technology. But it
Yeah.
sucks the light of the sun and then it reflects it straight into your eye because it knows where you are. So
Mhm.
it's ultra hyper transhumanist technology that they're able to harness its it's kind of level 1 civilization type of stuff, whatever they call it. They probably have something, how else can you explain this? It's just pure science fiction, right? How can it be reflecting the light of the sun without any physical sort of changes happening as it moves, right? That's what you see when something is reflecting the light of the sun from the distance on the earth, right?
Yeah,
See those
exactly.
changes.
10,000 little lights following it as well. 10,000 satellites should be reflecting just as equally as with the ISS.
Yeah, thousands of satellites, right? Those, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
They should
But I
simulate
have a
those.
question on those degrees, though. You showed at one time that it gets as high as 82 degrees, that you could see it at 82 degrees. How's that possible? It should be eclipsed.
Let's see, 72 degrees, and
I think
let's see.
I've seen it at 87. I think.
There's no way.
Yeah, I've
They
seen
should
it come
ever
pretty
have
close
sunlight
to
hit it.
exactly, Ben. Exactly. There's no way, especially when like I said, compared to the diameter of the Earth, it's 0.03% above it. There's just no way. It defies all geometry.
It has
By
to
the-
be exactly ahead on top of you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way,
Somehow.
Flathead Politics just mentioned in chat, he said you can click on any map marker to send that person a direct message. So that's pretty slick. So if you go to the people finder here and we click on any one of these people, you can send them a direct message. So again, this would be the perfect tool for being able to do that. So thank you, Flathead Politics and Zoom Truth, for bringing this to us. This is, I think it's going to be really cool. So yeah, there's just, so many things wrong, and NASA, that's why they are, that's why they stopped their live feed, right? Because their live feed was never commensurate with, what was being shown. Jaron went out there, and I've been out there, on several early mornings, and it always, Colorado is known for how many sunshiny days that it gets every year. And, it would be a perfectly clear, crystal clear, blue sky, beautiful day. And I'm watching the ISS traverse over, and you look at the live feed, and it's complete clouds over the entire country. It's just absurd, right? So, yeah, those are some of the things. Yeah,
It's always off. They say they're changing cameras, they're changing whatever. They have some sort of standard thing they say there.
Yep.
Bob,
So-
do you remember the video I did? I don't know if you remember this, but I showed, I think it was from N2Yo, where you can look at the predictions of when the ISS will be flying over your head. And I showed that I could find every time there was, one at 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., all the way to 7 or 8 a.m. Did you ever see that video?
I did, and I couldn't believe that because, supposedly the reason that you're supposed to be able to see this is because as the sun drops down below the horizon and the curvature of the Earth, it then gets the angle that can be, shot up, right? But you
Right.
were showing it as going all night long, and it's like there's no
Right.
way. The sun would be on the other side of the Earth with a 100% obstruction, which it should be at any point, to be quite honest with you, and it should never have the angle to reflect light to your sky, to your eye.
Right.
I mean.
The difference to me is if there is something up there, be it a plane, whatever, is that if the sun is up above the Earth all the time, like we think it is, it's up there, then I think that light can travel further. It doesn't hit any atmosphere. It's up higher. And maybe possibly that's what's picking up that light. And that's why you're able to see it basically at any time of night. So I remember looking at that. I just pulled it up right now to see if I could show you. But now I think because we're getting near winter, which is when the sun is on its outer path, that now it looks like, at least according to what I pulled up right now for my location, for the next 10 days, the times are 5:30, 7 o'clock, 4:45, 6 o'clock, 5:30, 4:40, 5:30, 4:40, 6 o'clock, 5:20. So they're all morning sightings, which is just weird. So I think it's during our summer. So if we get near June and July again, then if I brought this up, I would be able to see the ISS at any time.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. I'll do some more follow up on that. Write myself a note.
There you go. And Kirk, Curious Life. By the way, guys, Kirk, Curious Life, former Globebuster, is back. He has reopened his channel. He is in the chat. And he just made a very, very good point that I think we definitely need to take heed of. He says, if it is in fact the ISS, or if in fact the ISS is a natural celestial event, the deceivers will encourage the conspiracies. Got to not get trapped in either. So what he's saying then is that, you know, if this is some sort of a natural event, like, you know, people have seen lights in the skies long before we had aircraft, right? So there are definitely these type of natural unexplained events. We're not exactly sure what they are, but they do appear to be very cyclical. They are on an absolute time schedule. And if what they've done is they've tied the ISS's alleged position to this object, then that could be a problem. But that doesn't to me explain why we wouldn't be able to see it all at the same time. So that's all I'm saying. Again, if it was this natural thing, then you should be able to see it from hundreds, if not thousands of miles away, like they're expecting us to believe, right? So good point, though, Kirk. Thank you for that.
But you're right, Bob. If it covered thousands of miles in our viewing, that should mean thousands of miles of people should be seeing it all same time, right? Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out
Now with
there.
this though, but the way he looks though, do you think it looks like something like anything else? Because the way, what kind of photos did you take, Jaron? How does it look for you?
Well, I mean, when you do the solar pass or the lunar pass, it certainly looks like a letter H. I don't know how else to describe it. Flying by,
like a TIE fighter.
Yeah, and again, people can go out, just go to ISS, or no, it's just called transit-finder, I think, .com, and you can put in your location, and it will tell you when there's going to be a pass. It's usually not exactly, for instance, if I put in my location right now, there may not be a pass in the next month, but there's somewhere within traveling distance. I think you can put in a distance, so if you put in like 200 kilometers, then there'll pretty much always be within 30 days something you can drive to and observe it yourself. And, with a solar filter, if you're doing the solar pass, or you can do it with just a regular P900 or any camera really, if you're doing it for a lunar pass.
Yeah. And, one other thing also to take into consideration, I think, is that some people that I believe are credible, like, Take Back Space TV, CD, Chris, we've had him on the show before. And he does a show quite often where he's got a really nice 10-inch Celestron hooked up to a Sony high-end camera, and you get some great footage. And there are times when, even when the ISS is going over, it appears that there is, it's nowhere near as clear as what Jaron, photographed over the sun and the moon, this perfect TIE fighter looking thing. But it almost looks like there is something that could possibly, resemble the ISS. Now, again, this could be part of a holographic thing or not, because honestly, I don't know how they pull off the one over the sun and the moon. But
right.
the fact that it's so crisp, something tells me there's something really wrong with that, right?
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. And if people want to know my opinion of why I still don't believe in the ISS, all you have to do is watch either of those videos, my solar pass or lunar pass video. And I'll do another one just to show that, usually you can, in the past, I kind of kept it from anybody that I was going to be observing it, just because I wanted to see if that added to it, and that didn't, because I didn't tell anybody I was going to be observing it. It was only me who knew, and I drove to that location, and sure enough, it passed within a few seconds of when it was supposed to. And I agree with you, Bob. It looks pretty awkward, and I still have never seen, let's say there's a lunar pass, and it's at night when you can see the ISS, right? Usually, at least the one that I saw that was a lunar pass, you couldn't see it on its way. Like, it wasn't lit up by the sun. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So during a lunar pass, I went out. It was probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and it wasn't one of the passes that they said I could see. So it's not like I could start watching it at the horizon, and here it comes, and okay, it's heading right towards the moon. It wasn't like that. It's one of those that I couldn't see at all. The only thing you could see was the second that it passed the moon. So you had to be focused directly on the moon. It passed the moon. It goes away. You don't ever see it again. So I think it's weird that I haven't yet seen, and I could be wrong, if anybody knows any links to where I could see one where you start watching it from the horizon. Okay, now I see it. And it never really appears at the horizon either. That's another weird thing. It kind of appears from the distance.
Yeah, out of
Kinda
nowhere.
So you're saying they
nowhere.
tell you, so they tell you exactly when the lunar pass or the solar pass is going to happen. You wait for it. It happens when they tell you it happens, and then you cannot track it from there.
Correct, which is much different than, let's say, the ISS is going to pass tonight at 8 p.m. and they say it's a viewable pass. Well, I would be able to go out, and off in the distance, it kind of just appears. I'd say maybe 5-10 degrees above the horizon, and then it kind of passes over your head, and it's always a different degree of altitude, right? It'll either be you really can't see anything lower than 20 or 30 degrees, but if it's above that, say 30 or more, 30 to 90, then you would see it. And that degree I'm giving you is when, at its highest passing. So anyway, let's say it's 70 degrees and I'm watching it. I've never seen that one cross the moon. So I know it sounds weird, but it's I would expect to see that. I would expect to see, there's the ISS. I'm tracking it. Oh, yep, it's right online. It's going to pass the moon here in a second. But I've never seen one of those. Have you, Bob?
No, I have not.
And then the weird thing about the sun is the same thing, right? If you go out to observe it when it's going to pass the sun, of course, it's daytime, so there's no way you can see it. All you can do is zoom your camera in with a solar filter right on the solar disk and hold it there at the exact moment that they say it will pass, and it will pass. So the weird thing about that is I think that if we drew up more people along that path, and you can actually do this in that Transit Finder website, you can see that multiple people would be able to see it just at different times. So I've always kind of been bewildered about that, but it's something I think we should definitely look into doing, like a group viewing.
Yep.
These solar passes, are they for a particular area, or they happen for everybody who's seen it on that day when they promote it, when they talk about it?
Do you want me to kind of show you?
Sure.
Hold on a second.
Sure.
Give me a second,
Hello,
Bob, though,
guys.
because Iru.
Yeah, I'm sorry for interrupt, but I believe was a nice, a good moment. Hello, everyone. I just joined the group. Hello, everyone in the chat. I'm just going to be a little quiet and trying to understand what you're talking about. I assume it's the ISS, the transit, and
Transit, yeah. Yeah, we were wondering what exactly it is. If you looked into it, the distances, the size it has, the shape it has, and now we're wondering. I ask, when it goes in front of the sun, because they promote the event when it goes in front of the sun, is it that everybody in the country is going to see it at the same time, or is it just for a particular area? That's what I ask.
Well, let me show you. I don't know if Bob has my site.
You are presenting.
page up. Okay. So you can basically pick anywhere, but let's say that we want to pick somewhere near me here. Let's go to Fresno. So I double click on that and I hit save and close. It will auto populate this longitude, latitude. And then you can check, okay, let's say I want between 200 kilometers, I think, which is the max. And then you hit calculate. So now what it's going to do is it's going to bring up all the passes for that location. And you'll see here that it says lunar close pass. It'll come close to the moon. It will come close to the sun. So basically you go down till you find one that crosses. Okay, I don't have one. So, or, that location doesn't have one. Everything just comes close. Let me see if I can find one that is, so we'll just go to a different map location. Let's go to Denver. Okay, so let's say in here, and then try that one. Like I said, I'd have to do I should have put that to 200. I should probably do a video on this because it would be better if I had some of this stuff set up already. So there's none there either. But eventually what you would see, I wonder if it's in the south right now that you see it a lot more. Let me try something here. Now I'm thinking about it because I usually see them during the summer. Let's go select from map. Let me go down to the south. Let's go to Argentina or something down here.
Okay. While you're doing that,
one.
I just want to make
Sure.
a comment. It just seems like these transits are very specific. And again, if the ISS is really that high, and the moon being that distance, the sun being that distance, it seems to me that the viewing area would be far, far bigger than what they seem to be pinning you down on in this thing. So. Just a thought.
Well, what I wasn't thinking too is when I do select from the map, let me try one more time just because I can move it to get it closer. For instance, let's go back to Fresno here. Okay. And let's do 200. So again, this is not going to have one, but based on where it says the ISS is, I should be able to move the marker to find the spot. I'll show you what I mean. So this is a solar pass here, right? But you'll see that this person sees it a little bit south. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go show on map. Okay. So now what I can do is actually I can move the location to here instead. So I'm going to recalculate for this location. And now it's going to show a pass directly. Okay. So this one here. So on this date, 10/27, which is today, it's funny, that's right now. Interesting. Okay, that's right. It's exactly right now.
So
isn't
it's
it
red,
12,
maybe.
Isn't it 12:50? No, the red one means that it's an actual pass.
Wow.
So see how none of them are red, but this one here is red. It's exactly right now. So if you went show on the map, okay, so what it's basically saying is that the ISS is going to pass from the right to the left. For anybody, this is kind of, you'd have to travel this spot, but you can move it along. So, if you kept drawing this line down here and you say, okay, how about this person here? If I recalculate for this spot, well, that person's going to see the same thing. It would just be a difference in time. So see, that's still there, but instead of 12:50, now it's 12:51.
But that path, that viewing path is incredibly skinny.
Right. And that's the only people that would be able, and this, you mean this red path?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the red path is the only people that would
And
see it
straight,
across
I
the
guess.
solar disk, right? But the circle path is everyone who would be able to see it, say it was at night. So the reason why nobody in this outer path can see it is because it's daytime, right? But you can keep drawing this line. I've done this before, and it eventually runs out, which is weird also. But I can recalculate for this position. And again, now instead of 12:51, it's going to be a little bit later. See, now it's 12:52. So
What happens when you click on the photographs that they show right there? These not photographs, these images here. What's that? It doesn't show it because what I find it curious that it has some sort of already calculated simulation or some sort of computer generated 3D thing that calculates the position in relation to the ISS, right? So that's basically what they would use to they have that all beforehand.
Right, they know all this location, right? So you can keep drawing this line down, and now this people would see it at 12:53. Is my guess, but that'll be taking 1 second here.
Okay, and also just real quick, shout out to Hendrik Olertz, who I always screw up your name. I'm so sorry about that, Hendrik, for the €50 super chat. Much appreciated. Shout out to you. Thank you, sir.
So the confusion I have a little bit with Bob's idea is based on this and based on the evidence, which is for me, I looked on this, I saw when it was supposed to cross my sun. I didn't tell anybody. I went out and observed on that date, exact time. Again, you wouldn't see it because it's daytime, so you have to just put your camera on the solar disk, hit record, and then count down the seconds, and then it passes. So based on that and the fact that I can keep hitting show on map, and I can keep drawing this out, I can keep going to here, recalculate for this position. And again, it will still be a viewing. That's why I think that people in that path would all see that happen. Because otherwise, how would I have gotten just lucky enough to pick a date and time when it did pass? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I understand what you're saying.
again, yeah, and you can keep drawing this line down, 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 down. And then sometimes it just runs out. And there's a lot of weird things about this because you'll notice, Bob, you said that this path is very thin, right?
Yes.
So if you find one up north, so if I go up here in Canada, say up here somewhere, or whatever this is, Whitehorse, and I recalculate for this position, something that you'll usually see that's very weird is the viewing path of the passing of the sun or moon is much, much larger. Watch, let's see if I can, again, it's better if I made a video on this because I'm kind of guessing at the dark here. Okay, so this one's showing, so if you go show on map, okay, so now see the viewing path, Bob? It's much thicker. So now my opinion of that is because if you're on a flat plane, and for instance, I just think somebody from a distance, north or south, would see it. More people would see it cross the sun. But again, see how this gets bigger? So I can go here, recalculate for this position. This path will keep getting bigger. Don't you think that's weird?
Yeah, that is odd.
And this is at this time of the year, right? It's calculating for this time of the year. So the sun is going away from.
This is yesterday. So right now it's showing yesterday. But if click show on map, so see how this keeps getting bigger. And but this is interesting because now you'll notice that it ended. So watch this. If I click here and hit recalculate for this location, so it's right next to that person, right? But it's not going to show a pass. And I can tell that because the path stopped propagating. See? So
Interesting.
it's really weird. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a little bit above my pay grade. But,
Well,
I still think it's very interesting that happens, and it's that way for the North and South. And then, as I've always said, one of the biggest things that doesn't make any sense to me. Let me return to settings here. Let's go select from map. One of the strangest things to me is, okay, so it makes sense to me that I would see it pass the sun or moon right to left. That makes sense to me because I'm in the north and I'm looking south at the sun and moon, right? And if you kind of picture that, why is this thing not working? Select from map. Okay. But what's really weird is if you go down here, and I've talked about this before and I've never gotten a satisfactory answer because it doesn't really match for me flat earth or globe earth. But let's say let's go Brisbane. We're here. Dave said it stops because the plane has to divert to go refuel. That's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. What happened here? Did I do? Oh yeah, 200 calculated.
Yeah, I would think it's switching drones in my opinion, but
right.
that's
So
why
there might be something. Okay, so this is the part that confuses me. So this one here, let me show this on map. This is down in Australia, right? So I'm picking a place on this. I'm hitting recalculate for this location. Okay, so here's the part that confuses me. Why would it be that somebody in the south could ever see the ISS pass the sun right to left? Think about that for a second, because if you look at all these, it's always right to left. Look at the arrow, right to left, right to left, right to left. This one's even, you still call that right to left. That one's a little bit left to right. Right to left, right to left, right to left, straight down, a little bit left to right, a little bit left to right. But if you think about that, how could somebody in the south, right, be looking at the sun? So let me show on the map here just to make more sense. So it's saying this person viewing the sun, which is north of Australia, obviously, right? So the sun's going to be up here somewhere. How could they see the ISS pass the sun right to left? The
It's
ISS
going the other direction, right?
The ISS travels this direction. So
Right.
the ISS is going left to right. Now, again, that makes sense to me in the north. When I'm looking from the north, if we go up here to the United States, and I'm standing here, and the ISS is coming this way, well then, yeah, if the sun is here, then I'm going to see it pass. Remember, I'm north looking south, so it would be from my right to left. But I've never seen anybody explain why somebody in the south looking at the northern sun would see the ISS. The ISS should pass left to right.
Is it possible to see how from different locations at the same time, what kind of expectation they create here, what kind of impression they want you to get? Like, well, right, I'm saying if you have two people in two different places at the same time with this map, can you find out what is it? You know, it's like, so say Australia, they're looking at it and they're seeing it coming from right to left. And then at the same time, can you look at what somebody else would be seeing from the north, say, according to them? Is it possible to get
No.
the times? No.
No, because they would never see it. The only this green circle can see the ISS. Now this green circle, right? This green circle would move with wherever that line was, right?
Right.
So the green circle would move along the path. So if only these, let's say this is the path here coming down this way, then that green circle would travel along this path, and anybody in the green circle could see it. Now remember, we have to be talking about at night. If it's during the day, then you would only see it past the sun. But
and what's the distance there to? What's the distance of this circle here?
Good question. That's a good question. I think you could do the curve calculator and figure out what it should be, because that's, if you put your viewing height, would that work? I don't know. I'm just thinking if you do the eye height of 1,375,000 feet, and then you figure out your target distance of, say, 500 miles, could you see 500 miles? Yes. Could you see?
Actually,
1,000 miles?
if you put in the observation height of the ISS at about 240 miles, it comes back that their distance to the horizon is 1,400 miles.
Okay, good. That's what I was going to say. So if I put 1,500 miles, calculate, yeah, you're right. It's going to be 1,400. I'm just going to try and get, yeah, so it's between 1,400 and 1,500, like Bob said. So 1,450 maybe 1460 until you get this number to, yeah. So it's about 1460 miles. So
1460 radius from the center.
Well, that should be the diameter of the circle, Bob? Or the
distance
radius?
from the center.
No, that's
the distance from the center.
That's just all I'm
That's the
doing is
radius.
distance to the horizon, and that would be the observable area
From the
theoretically
center.
that you should be able to see that. Of course,
Oh, from the ISS.
right.
Right.
In other words,
So
if I
then,
put
I
a
don't know
big
if I
bright
can-
light up there that was an isotropic type of or an omnidirectional type of light, theoretically, if it's bright enough, you should be able to see it for 1,400 miles in all directions.
1400 miles. So what's the size of that circle then? Can we figure that out? Because if that's smaller, then we know it has to be 1400 miles, that circle.
Well, it's certainly not.
It's certainly
Because-
way smaller.
Yeah, it's that circle looks to be, I don't know, the width of California.
So what is the
So-
eye height for the observer for that kind of side of the circle? Because working backward, you can say, well, what's the size of this circle? And then figure out what's the height of this thing that they have there.
Right. Well, that's the part of the math that
Yeah.
NASA doesn't disclose, and they don't get right. They simply don't cover it because of
interesting.
questions like that.
Right.
Right?
So yeah, if anybody, I'm always looking for videos that people have seen others do, but if you have any idea, and the reason that I, think this doesn't work when I say I don't understand how it works on a flat earth either is on a flat earth as well, I wouldn't understand how somebody in Australia would ever see the ISS pass the sun left to right. Well, I'm sorry, right to left. The ISS would be passing this way. So if you're here and you're looking at the sun up here somewhere, it's always going to be north pretty much of Australia. Then I would assume that they would see it pass left to right. But it's very rare, if ever, that you get to see that. If you go over here, recalculate for this position, we'll have to find one that's kind of close. I forgot that you can hit show on map, which works well. Because like, for instance, this one, we can go show on map. Now we can find that location. So let's get it in there, recalculate. But you'll see that it's going to go right to left. And then if you kind of draw a line down, right to left, see how they all go right to left, right to left, right to left. This one's left to right, but kind of straight down, straight down. So I think there's a lot of questions. And I remember asking a few people in the past, I don't remember who exactly they were, but even some Globe members to try and let me know, or Globe believers, why it is that it goes right to left. And I just haven't been explained it well. So hopefully that information comes eventually, but I think I'm done sharing for now.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So Ben, I know you wanted to finish rendering out a video. Let me go ahead and share my screen back on the right-hand side with you. So there was something that you wanted to point out, Ben, and before you go do that, about this particular thing, the NASA photograph of the Earth, the image with sex in the clouds.
Do you mind if I share my screen?
No, not at all.
Okay, let's see how it's been a while since I've done this. Let's see, share screen. Okay, can you see what I'm seeing?
It's coming up, and it's up. Okay, and you are presenting.
Okay, so everyone's probably familiar with this photograph where it has the sex in the clouds. This is that 2015 Blue Marble photograph, supposed photograph. And what's huge about this one and why I discussed it in my other presentation video is because this was the first supposed photograph of the Earth from space since Apollo 17 in 1972. So this is like what 45 years since NASA had supposedly taken a photograph. This is the first one. And so again, this isn't cherry picking one of thousands of photographs. This is the first photograph after 45 years. And what I was talking about in the videos, I was saying how, it's sex in the clouds. It's it's pretty obvious, especially when you rotate it. I have it here rotated on my video. But anyone can see that's what it looks like. And so I was just basically saying, some pervert at NASA and, Disney, they put sex in the clouds with the Lion King, things like that. But I had a commenter on that video point something out pretty interesting. And that is with respect to the 666. And that's, of course, from Revelation 13:18, where it basically says, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast versus the number of a man, and his number is 666. You bring up the Greek translation, you have to go to the Old Greek. Look at that right there. It is this symbol here, a little blown up a little bit more. But when you compare the Greek number 666 with the photograph,
Wow.
the resemblance is uncanny. I mean, I have
That's
to
a
say
ringer.
this is a little bit more sinister than just, sex and clouds. And so I'm not going to say it's sex and clouds anymore. It does look like they actually put 666 in the clouds. Just kind of like with our, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the barcode and how it also has the 666 in it and things like that. And they did that with this photograph, supposed photograph. But anyway, I thought that was fascinating. Thank you to that commenter. I forget what your name was, but thank you for pointing that out. Maybe I'm behind the ball on this, and everyone's already been talking about this, but I just found it very fascinating.
Yeah, no, I don't think everybody's been talking about it. I mean, I've seen it out there a couple times, but it's certainly not widespread. And I'm sure that our viewers will find it quite interesting because, yeah, everybody has definitely seen, oh, yeah, they're puerile and they put 6 in the clouds. But when you look at look at that image and what it's portraying in the Greek language, the old Greek language, it is giving us literally 666 in the clouds, which is just wow.
Yeah,
So-
you know what I also noticed just there, if you go back to it, is that not only has that, of course, we look for these inversions in mirrors, right? But it also seems to say yes. As this kind of as a kind of affirmation when you look at it, because it has a division between in the X, it makes the X like a Y. Yeah, not if you have the red on it, you won't see it. So it has to be
it's actually to the right if you look over here. And it's flipped up, but yeah,
yeah. So when Ben flipped it around, you can also see a kind of yes in there, which I don't know how subliminal it is, or if it's just something I'm seeing because of that division on the right there. You see the Y, the X could be a Y, and when you turn it around, it looks like it's also yes. When you turn it into the hex thing, right? And also the hex is a witch, right?
Yeah. Yep. When you hex somebody.
No, but it's the name for witch in the Norwegian idea, or the Nordic idea of witch is called hex.
The thing is that is not a typically nature made clouds in that way.
Oh yeah.
It's a little strange.
I forgot about that.
Of course, everybody see the rabbit. Everybody see like dragons, whatever in the cloud, in the local view. But I don't believe that clouds could be made by nature. It's a little strange. And when you put in context and you start to compare all the symbology behind the movies, the music industry, the all the culture in the music, you become aware that NASA is the same thing. It's controlling by the same guys, by the same institution, the same media, the same craft,
symbols and mantra, and their kind of control of them, which is interesting because it goes back into the Vedic scriptures that they say that the demons that were cast away, or the angels that were cast away, very similar to the story of the Bible. What they want is to be worshipped in the world of men by manipulating symbols and controlling people with their, but exactly like what they're doing here. And these are atheist demons, essentially, by the way, in that story.
Yeah, and the ball is the most powerful symbol of all, at least in our modern times, because that is the icon itself of this spherical Earth. They control the world.
You showed, from that Masonic lodge in Argentina, if you may show it again, they have in the Masonic lodge a painting of a ball that has a chain on it, linking the ball to the chain to the sun. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Which is quite a symbolism there. They created a ball to lock, and it's like the ball that prisoners have also around their waist, their feet. Very similar to that, with a ball and a chain, and then connected to the sun. Very odd kind of symbolism there.
Yes, I'm sharing right now, so I don't know if you want to present it, but it's this is my the picture that I screen capture from a screenshot, sorry, for inside of one of the most biggest Masonic lodge here in Argentina, which has the name of Lautaro, the Lautaro Lodge. And well, when you enter to this building, this is inside of one of the principal's room where they made all the rituals. But supposedly this is the storm, the all this stormy part from the picture is because when you are not initiated, you are a profane, you have your life like completely in chaos. So when you find the light, you're gonna become like a man, an enlightening one, right? And it's really curious how they change the sun and the earth in the representation. Also, I believe, because I am not asked any Mason, but it's like trying to talk about the force of gravity or something like that. Like we see the sun more small because the distance, and the earth like connected directly to the universal energy. It's really strange. Of course these guys are the selected ones to continue the spherical model proposed from the church, right? So that is, in my opinion, at least what you can find in the history books. And when you start to connect the dot from the heliocentric model with the first university that was created in 1603 by the Vatican, and Galileo Galilei was the first director of that first university. 50 years later, they create the Royal Academy of London, in London, of course. And when you start to search where, right in our modern days, where are the most, the nucleus of the Freemasonry is in France and England, and most in England. In fact, all the Masons, and I trying to talk about this even with guys here in Argentina, because for the war of Malvinas, of the Falklands, there is in the social community, there is this kind of ugly feeling between England's and English people and Argentinian people. But all the people that goes for into a lodge, a Freemasonry lodge, they are trying to convert themselves in British guys, because that is what you do inside of Freemasonry. They trying to, even you guys in the United States or the guys in Colombia or whatever in Spain, the supreme commander right now is still the Duke of Kent.
And these names ain't Supreme Commander. I mean, who wants to go under this kind of trash?
Well,
now?
but this guy is the most the top figure in the Freemasonry, and he was elected again this year. So anytime that you're trying to go inside of these kind of institutions, they trying to convert you in the little British guy.
Yeah, colonialism all the way.
Colonialism, exactly. Doesn't matter. There is a famous guy who was a Freemasonry in Chile, that they say he became a president, and he said inside we are not from right or from left in terms of politics. We are Freemasonry, so we vote what the lodge tell us that you need to vote. And I'm talking right now, here in Argentina, we have elections for president right now. In Chile, it was a disaster the last week in terms of the politics, and a lot of people, more than 1 million people, go out to the street to, there are like little focus of disturbs around the world right now, in Chile and Colombia and Ecuador, Hong Kong.
A lot of upheaval going on, lots of chaos being manufactured.
Lot of chaos, yes, totally manufactured. So when you go to the history, you're gonna find immediately that the Vatican and these guys are are behind the heliocentric model without any kind of doubt about it, because it's even in the history books in our days. So
that guy you showed, he looked like a version of Prince Philip, maybe his bastard cousin or something like that. That Grand Master guy.
yeah, could be, but the real thing is that the church and the Freemasonry in our days, they are together, something that supposedly never will happen.
They're
It-
fake
it's
separations. Yeah, it's
Yes,
funny that they
exactly.
separated the church and the state, right? This whole separation, the church and the state, and science coming out of it. This kind of supposedly beyond religion and so on and so forth. But then they have this marriage between government and industry. That's a good one. Like,
Yes.
you separate the church from the state and so on, but then you just marry it with the industry, and now we got what we got, right?
Well, yeah, that's when they give, of course, corporations the sovereignty of an individual. That it's just unbelievable where they've gone with this. So
Supposedly we don't live in a world under monarchies, but what these guys are doing, they just get out of the public, the public stage, but behind the public stage, of course, we are under the control of these monarchies, all the world.
And it's
They have
kind of
the illusion of democracy, the illusion of choice, but they are all behind the curtains. They are all from monarchies or lodges or occultism,
Yep. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
you look how they look. This is it's weird to me. Why would you follow? You just look at it, the way they're dressing and how they're presenting themselves, and you say, it's kind of mental illness. Sort of. I mean, why would you dress like that? Why would you wear these insignia, these medals, and all this stuff? Look at the history of how these things were invented in Rome, at least from what we know from the Romans, and it's all understood by the Roman authors who are writing about it as a total gimmick, as a ruse, as a way to manipulate people. If from 2,000 years ago, they looked at how Rome was formed and how Romulus invented all these insignia, the purple chair, all these different things that he gave different people. He gave them authority, gave them the symbols of power, gave them the eagle, gave them the staff, and then this fasces that the fascists copied. The lictores. It was these guys, 12 guys that follow Romulus around. He created them, gave them very different looking garb and stuff, and it's to create this impression of his authority. It's in the Romans are writing about this. They say it was totally fake. We know this. This is how the state pretends to be divine and intermingles itself with divine things and creates these symbols in order to control people. So they know, that's what we know for a long time, right? Not that the ball is out there, but we know this, and these guys are still going with it and tricking people with it.
Yep. Hey, Iru.
I'm stop sharing.
Go ahead and stop sharing. I'm gonna because I want to cover a couple of things. Are you still planning on doing the kind of what was it, the personal atmospheric dome type of perspective demonstration at some point today?
Okay. Give me a couple of minutes and I tell you.
Yeah, I will. I want to cover a couple of things first, but
okay, perfect.
So that's cool. Let's go ahead and do this. So a couple of things I want to cover, and let me go ahead and kick my share over to the right. Before we move on, and by the way, Ben bowed out for just a few minutes. He's got to get a video rendered, and then we're going to actually world premiere it here. It's a little 5-minute video that Ben is working on. We're going to world premiere it here on Globebusters. But before we get to that, got a couple other things I want to cover really quick. One thing that we were talking about today is our own David Weiss, who we know David. He wherever he goes, he flat smacks. He just doesn't know how to do anything else. So
yes, completely.
So David was in a phone store, right? And he says hashtag ABFS, meaning always be flat smacking. So David does this in the store, and I'm showing it right now. And what he did is he went and he put his app on every single one of these phones. Absolutely
Classic
hilarious.
Weiss. Classic Weiss.
Awesome.
Look at the ratings, by the way. I see 4.7 on the ratings. It's pretty hard to get your app so well liked, especially when you've got legions of trolls out there trying to get that down.
Yeah,
there you go.
those minions.
4.7. Yeah, minions.
An army of minions. Yeah,
An army of them.
Yeah,
So that's impressive,
good.
David.
That is good job, David. So Yep. Shout out to Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole on that one. Every single one.
What's
All right.
better than an iPhone 11 Pro? An iPhone 11 Pro with the Flatter, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac clock app already downloaded on it.
That's right. Should come as standard equipment, right?
Right. Come on.
All right, cool. All right, so next up, let's stop that one. I'm sure you guys have heard about this, and I have a few observations on this that I made. I don't know if anybody else did, but I think this is kind of interesting. So the story is Michigan family shocked to find space gear crashed under their property. So it says in Saginaw County, Michigan, Nancy Welk said she heard something crash under her property on the Saginaw and Gratiot County line around 8:45 this morning. Gratiot County 911 confirms they are investigating. Welk says that when she went outside, she found a device that appeared to be from outer space. I don't think so. Welk said the device was still making noise. The device had wording Samsung Space Selfie on it, right? Okay. And that's all cool and everything. And they talk about it. Earlier this week, Samsung unveiled the world's first selfie sent to space, captured by actor, model, and philanthropist Cara Delvigne, and shown for the first time during a celebrity-filled event at the newly opened Samsung KX Experience Space. All right, so Samsung says the selfie is the first of many that Samsung will lift into the stratosphere this month as part of Space Selfie, a mission to give everyone the chance to get their face in space. All right, and then they have a little bit of a video here and everything. So what I thought was interesting about this is if we look at the actual, and Ben actually posted this, if we actually look at what crashed here, and this is just a really quick video, and I'll play it a couple times here.
Never know what's going to happen. This baby fell out of the sky and landed in our yard. It's never boring on the Welke farm. Thank God there's no horses out or it didn't hit the house. And it's still going and flashing.
So still going and flashing. All right, so what I thought was interesting about this is Samsung released a video on this, and it's about the S10 launch. And so if we actually play this, whoops, I don't know if we need the sound necessarily. So apparently this is part of the space selfie camera gear. But what I think is interesting about this is what they're showing here appears to be very, very different than what appeared to crash at the Welke farm. So
interesting.
And, I don't know, but see what you guys think about this. And this looks like this little bitty thing, and they're going to tack it onto this balloon. And I could be all wet on this. If I am, let me know in the comments. But do you see that thing, how little it is? That doesn't look anything like this.
The ball rotating there.
Yeah. Oh, there is a ball.
And it
No,
rotates.
it's nothing. Yeah, and rotate. Yeah, but it's not nothing to do with the satellite. Well, satellite. That
It's
equipment
much
that
different than
goes
that
yeah,
thing, of course, yeah.
We have a lot of those. Falling
flat as it gets.
In Argentina.
Yeah.
And
And
South America.
And the reason I bring that up is because this is the video that they put in this story. If we play it right here, this is the very same video. Whoops. That they embedded into this. So I'm thinking, well,
Doesn't match the machine.
doesn't look anything like it. It's like,
Not at all.
So I'm not sure what to make of that, but this could, and this was dated. Oops, wrong one. That's Ben's. But this was dated February 28, 2019, which would be more commensurate with when Samsung, supposedly did this, but it looks completely different. So I mean, they could have back engineered this and put this in at some point just to kind of make a propaganda piece to cover. It's like, oh no, this was just a balloon launch. We did it all along. But like I said, this looks nothing like this. So I don't know what to think about that. So just thought I'd point that out. And it's in the same story. That's the other thing that's bizarre about it. So Very interesting.
It's interesting that the actual selfies from the phone show a flat Earth, and they're in Malaysia, but then the people are somehow looking at a monitor that shows a spinning ball. It's like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's just a local balloon with little camera on it, and why they showing the whole spinning ball there? It makes no sense. But then the images are actual flat. So,
Yeah.
especially the final image.
Yeah, it's very strange. Yeah, no fisheye on it, obviously. I'm not even sure that.
No, they just rotating the inclination of the camera to give the feeling or the sensation of a curve.
Yep. So who knows? Maybe the news agency got it all wrong or something like that.
It's so small.
Yeah, it's so small, but boy, look at that flat horizon.
And wasn't it tethered as well? That one, it seemed to have a tether on it to connect it to the ground. This one, when they launch it, I'm not sure, but.
Interesting. So anyway,
So that's flat.
Yeah, it's very flat. Look at that, boy. The altitude that's up to, it almost looks like it was shot down from the ISS. Not.
Yeah, completely. No, and the last image is just they rotated 60 degrees to clockwise, and okay, there is the curve. But if you rotate the image and put it horizontal, it's going to be flat. But there is this kind of crazy behavior that everything must go to space. Everything you it doesn't matter. Whatever.
Cappuccino foam.
Yeah, you need to go up to space. That is a new brand. Campaign idea.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we saw you showed us the mattress or the foam pillow, right? That NASA has, all these other things that all kinds of. It's a brand.
Yes,
that helps you sell stuff.
Yep, very interesting. Okay, so yeah, if anybody has any information on that, by all means, let me know. I just thought it was very strange. So, okay, so the other thing that I wanted to cover, and this again comes to us from David. Thank you very much, sir. Is apparently last night on Saturday Night Live, they had a skit going where I guess that's supposed to be Trump is addressing, and all of a sudden a person from the audience jumps up with a gun and says something to the effect of the earth is flat, and who was it as a man? Beyonce is a man or something, or Beyonce is white, I think she says.
No way.
Yeah, and I'll play it here in just a second. But the thing that concerns me about this, and I think it did everybody in the group when they first saw this, it's like, this to me looks like some predictive programming that essentially, because of the fact they are getting their butt kicked in this battle, of information, and that the flat Earth is obviously going viral, and they are pulling out, all the stops. So now I think what they're going to do is, they've already hinted at before that, flat earthers are, crazy lunatic psychopaths, and they're going to try and classify us as clinically insane and take away gun rights, and all this stuff has been hinted at, but now it's being elevated. So here we have last night on this video this little skit, and watch what happens here. And this is really kind of concerning. Here we go.
Okay, well, the earth is flat and Beyonce is white.
Okay.
Okay, well, the earth is flat and Beyonce is white.
The earth is flat and Beyonce is what? Waving a gun, right? Like a crazy flat earther. What do you guys think about that? This is insane to me.
Yeah, it's just more mockery. I mean, it actually is insane, but it doesn't surprise me. One thing I forgot to mention about the World Series game too is they had the astronauts on the ISS.
Oh yeah, you showed that some of that. I saw it, Jared. Oh goodness.
Oh boy, yeah. So the astronauts on the ISS had to call and say hello to all the baseball fans. But yeah,
and the intro as well, right? The intro is all about space.
Yep. Yeah, that was the intro to. I don't remember if that was game 1 or game 2. Game 2, I think. But yeah, no, it's just gotten hilarious. And yeah, this Saturday Night Live skit, it doesn't surprise me. That's the way they have to go. They have to demonize this. They have to make it seem crazy. Now the mainstream at least the left is going to say that only a gun-toting Trump fan and flat earther would vote for him. So yeah, they're trying their best, doing whatever they can to get that guy out of office.
Yeah. Well, on the other hand, you also, flat Earth is so out there. I mean, it's so prominent right now that anyone wants to take it. Everyone's going to take a stab at it because it gets them attention. So you'd see, we've seen chefs, like all kinds of people talking about flat Earth. You just throw it in there. So that, of course, these comedians are going to start bringing it in because it gets grabbed some attention. It's on the radar, it's trending or whatever. Right. So kind of people that just look at trends and try to go for whatever it's hot at the moment, they might, okay, let's do some flat Earth stuff. And then they do some stupid joke or whatever because they don't know much about it.
That's like you said, it's easy pickings too. It's a very easy target because again, once you've taught the entire world through education that flat Earth is ridiculous, then at any time in the future when it comes up, you just go back to everyone's programming that it's ridiculous. So as long as you keep playing that, it reminds people, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. Only ridiculous people think that. It's a very easy way to steer attention away from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they do that. It's usually what happens. They say, it's just stupid people, and then suddenly there's a bubble that's about to burst, and they're like, "What's going on?" It's a tsunami of flat earthers, and they realize that they're not idiots, and they actually have a lot. Their questions haven't been answered, and the tide is turning their way. So it must be a nightmare for some of these Globers right now, I think.
Exactly.
It works as long as we trust the media, right? Until people wake up to that, which a lot of people have, but not nearly enough. But when that starts happening, their whole world's going to crumble.
Yep, and that's exactly why they're ramping up the propaganda to the nth degree. This next video, Jaron posted in the chat this morning. You said, Jaron, it was being played during the World Series. Is that right?
Yeah, I still watch a little baseball to decompress to go back. So I played baseball through high school and stuff. So for me, it's still a good way to sit down and relax. But during the entire, I think this was game 2 or 3, they've been playing this commercial 3, 4, 5 times during the game, which is Buzz Aldrin with his, I don't know if it's his real grandson or it's supposed to be his grandson, but he basically asks him, why did he go to the moon? And he says, well, I went to get this baseball. And then another home run is hit. And then the kid asks, well, where'd that ball go? And he says, I don't know, maybe Mars. But it's still funny to see Aldrin in this particular case basically lying to his grandson. A lot of people can just look at this and say, oh, Jaron, come on, it's a joke. Yeah, well, sure. You can call it that. But yeah, when you see how much Aldrin has lied in the past, and he lies a lot, and even, I go back and tell people about the fact that his mom committed suicide right before he was supposed to go to the moon, which would, ground a lot of people, or at least, but what did they do? They just lied about her death and changed it from she committed suicide. They changed that till she had a heart attack. And it wasn't until he wrote a book years later that he admitted that. So I just think the guy is very good at telling stories. I'm not sure if a lot of those stories have been through MK Ultra or some sort of hypnotism placed into his mind, or if he's actually just a perpetual liar.
It has to be something like that. It's like the Edgar Mitchell guy, it's very weird. His book is very odd as well. And this guy swore that he saw alien ships coming down where he was like in the military and stuff. So something really sketchy is going on there. But when you read this stuff, you can tell that and they tell you there's a psychological training. They don't get too much into it. But in this book, The Way of the Explorer, Mitchell talks about potentially having been hypnotized and not remembering after.
Yeah. Well, to be fair though, Rodrigo, I mean, I myself personally have seen so-called UFOs on many occasions. Recently, I've talked several times about the triangular craft that flies about 150 right over the top of our house, completely silent, comes out of nowhere, disappears out of nowhere. I've seen really bizarre light formations in the sky where there are 3 sets of craft,
kind of like those Phoenix lights type of thing.
It's stuff like that.
NASA has a lot of drones in triangular shape.
Exactly.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, and I believe that they are ours, whatever they are. But you know, they're still quote unquote unidentified flying objects, right? I don't know what they are, but you know, they're up there. I've seen them. They don't act like any conventional aircraft, but they're there, right? So
yeah, my parents swear that they saw in Brazil in 19. It's in the even in the newspaper in 77, 78, I think. And she describes it to me. That's this bunch of lights doing all kinds of crazy stuff that seemed impossible. But who knows? Maybe some sort of light show, some sort of, you know, why would they do that over a populated city?
Well,
You know, it's
blue
just
beam,
odd stuff.
blue beam.
Yeah,
You know,
like
if that
that.
whole
You
thing
cannot,
is,
yeah.
yeah. I
But
mean,
you cannot leave that to the side.
Well, I mean, I was gonna make a stream about this because I just started looking at their propaganda, and there's a film or documentary called World War A as World War Alien, and you know Michio Kaku's in there, the Nick Pope guy is in there, you know all these secret space programs, astrophysicists and whatnot, and it's basically peddling, you know, that they're coming, and we can tell that they're gonna come, but we have to try to be prevented. And then they have another twist that they say aliens may look exactly like us.
Right.
On one hand, they say that
Perfect camouflage.
if they go to another planet, you know, because of the gravity and the evolution of the different planet, different elements of different planets, they could never have the biology like ours. But then these guys also peddle. They say, "Oh yeah, no, that's one thing." But then, they may look just like us because then if you catch that together with the blue beam, that some people are just coming out of these technologies that we don't never seen before, freaking us out, and they look exactly like us. But if they tell us that they're coming from somewhere else, you know, people may line up. It's kind of like that 1980s V, that
V.
everybody's seen.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was crazy. But anyway, so this video that I'm about to play, I mean, directly, of course, you could say, well, you know, they're just joking around. But the underlying message that, you know, subliminally what people are going to get is, yeah, well, they did go to the moon, and, you know, yeah, they're spoofing about the baseball, but the underlying message that they're trying to reinforce is that they actually went. So let's go ahead and play this really quick. It's just a minute long, and you guys tell me what you think. Here we go.
Grandpa, what was your favorite World Series baseball game?
1941, Game 4. A player hit the ball so hard, I thought it went to the moon.
That's why you went there?
Sure.
Buzz Aldrin and the Apollo 11 crew are rocketing to the moon to bring home what appears to be a baseball from 1941.
Where did that one go?
Maybe Mars.
Okay, and I apologize for that. Whoops, I apologize for the audio level on that, guys. It wasn't very high. It's Jaren's fault because he cut it and made it.
I filmed it off my TV, so
yeah,
it's a little hard to get good audio on that.
Yeah, but essentially, you know, he's just saying, well, yeah, we went there because, you know, the little kid is envisioning that, you know, he went there just to get the baseball, you know, whatever. Go ahead, Arrow.
No, I'm going to say that Jaran used the same technique as NASA. They film his own TV, and that is
right.
the best way to camouflage any errors and things like that.
Right. You can't prove that that's real now.
Exactly.
It's filmed off
It's a
the TV.
photocopy of another photocopy, and you know.
Right. Put that through photo forensics and see what happens. You know.
Exactly, man.
Yeah. One thing here for sure that what they're doing is this kind of marketing technique that we see that they also use in Hollywood, and what you have is a family scene that everyone will be able to relate to. You know, a child is adorable, asking questions to this wonderful great grandpa who happens to be a hero.
Oh, you're so right. I saw so many tweets right after. You know, I jumped on my phone just to see, because you can usually find live up-to-date tweets, you know, right away. So I'm looking at all these people tweeting saying, "Oh, as if I needed more reason to love Buzz Aldrin." Exactly. So you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. It's that pulling the heartstrings idea. He's so calm, he's so nice, he's there, he's watching the game, he's teaching. Is this generational thing, the hero. You follow, is the hero archetype. They love these kind of Jungian, Freudian ideas. So they basically pushing that you associate with the good things. It's like one of the things that people pointed out when they look at Easter eggs in films. When the globe is shown, when the ball appears, sometimes it's in the room where the boyfriend and girlfriend are getting together and doing, having a good time. And then the ball is there to reinforce, to connect those things together, to give you that association and pleasure with the ball. And with the satanic inversion, what you also see, which that I think we talked about that show Vikings. Somebody mentioned it. I don't know who was. I think it was Rob Skiba last night. In that film, what they do is that they throw sex and violence together. They literally have people having sex and then getting killed while they're having sex at the same time, which is how they are messing people's minds. And it's something that you see in the beginning of the Mahabharata as one of the most forbidden things. So what gives Pandu his curse, that you cannot kill creatures who are in the act of love. Even with the hunters, if he's a hunter, it's kind of like a hunter who's responsible is just going out for meat. He's not going to kill a pregnant deer, right? He's going to try to. If he does that, he's going to feel very bad because they don't want to do that, right? So things that don't go together, sex and violence don't go together, and they wanted to go together. In this case, it's a different kind of form. As I'm just saying, it kind of free flowing there, but what they're doing here is very deliberate, and you can see it. You can see it clearly. It's like everyone has a living room, sits with their family, watches TV. In the States, that's the model, and love sports. And kind of relax and because you work all week, finally have time to relax a little bit. And so they catch you in that moment, and then they throw Buzz. What's he doing? It's been 40 years, hasn't gone back to anywhere. He's been caught lying, and he's basically an actor, kind of like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Shouldn't he be retired somewhere? Why is he still going around talking about the moon? What a contract with the devil, like to have to all the way to your 80 to be having to go around and do this moon propaganda, like you should be relaxing somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Iro, are you about ready, or do we have?
I am not ready because I am rendering for a job, and I believe it's gonna finish. But there is like an hour and a half left.
Oh, geez.
And yes, and I am using the Cinema 4D for rendering that. But I can present it what I have been already pre-render in the past. So if you like it, I can present it that.
Okay, that works for me. Or one other thing I also had up here to cover, and this is just a couple minute video that I wanted you guys to see. That I find kind of interesting. Oh, good grief, what did I do with it? Okay, so do you guys remember Chris Monk, right? Chris Sele,
yes.
Monk Sele? Okay, so
yeah, of course.
He kind of went back to the globe, and but I came across a clip the other day. Somebody actually posted it in our chat, and I thought this was amazing because Chris was a kind of a major engineer, and he's really good with like you are here with rendering stuff. And we've covered the WGS84 flattened ellipsoid datum, database, I should say, before, and how it's interesting that you never actually get to see it rendered out as to what it would actually look like. And so I came across this clip, or somebody posted it, and it's it's like 4 minutes long, but it's super interesting because what Chris does in this is he takes the white papers on the WGS84 map and kind of breaks down the math and then projects what the map would look like. And ironically, it comes out to be none other than a flat Earth map, as I have said, many times before, that it absolutely would. But the key thing in this is this little parameter right here, the flattening factor of the Earth, which is 1 over F, and Chris is going to explain that. But it's basically almost 300 times that it is punched down. So really, even the holy grail of maps, the WGS-84, which we've never seen an actual projection of. I wonder why, because it's always kept under such tight wraps. When he actually projected it out, well, it's pretty interesting what this comes out to be. So I'm going to play this and let you guys see it and see what the audience thinks of it. And this one, I guess, was done on a Nathan Oakley interview, because there is one point when Nathan asks him to repeat himself after he cuts out a little bit. But I just found this to be super interesting. So let's give this a listen, guys. Here we go. Oops. Well, maybe I need to refresh it.
And as you kind of keep reading through, it gets more interesting as you go through it. Coordinate system. Let's see. Geometric center. Generated by using. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. So the WGS 84 geodetic coordinates are generated. So generated, right? They're not actually anything, but they're generated by using its reference. This is a reference, fictional reference, ellipsoid. Okay, what's an ellipsoid? And how do they come up with a definition? What does it look like? What are its dimensions? In this particular one, you won't find any pictures. But I'll go through it a little bit so you can see that it matches the next reference that we use here. Semi-major axis flattening factor. Oh, we got a flattening factor. Well, that's interesting. What is a flattening factor? 1 divided by f, 298 seems like a rather large number. And how do we apply that flattening factor to gravity? And where is this gravity? So basically what they did is they took it and gave it an epoch to a certain year. So you have a point in time that's experiencing velocity. So obviously this thing is really complex to try to figure it out, because if it was a simple sphere, just a few dots on a sphere measuring land masses on the surface of a ball, anyone should be able to stretch a tape across it and do some dimensions and come up with a map that works. It shouldn't be this complicated, obviously. So let's have a closer look at what this thing really is when you take a picture of it. This is the reference Earth model, WGS-84. And here is the spheroid, ellipsoid, that's being referenced in those equations. And let's see, it's not too hard to figure out. We got a C value and an A value referencing this ellipsoid, spheroid. So the formula we looked at earlier for the flattening factor, which again, it's repeated, so this is the same number, around 300, 1 over 300. It says here to take A operations, so we take A minus a C. So now we've basically subtracted and lost that number completely. So we no longer have a vertical radius. We've subtracted it and then divide it by A.
Can you repeat that, because it broke up a little bit at the start of your sentence?
Well, when you just look at the basic math here, it's A minus C. So you take the A, subtract the C, and then take that value and then divide it by the A again.
It's the equatorial minus the polar radius.
So it's pretty easy math. You can see that that is completely canceling all this out, essentially. It's a derivative factor.
Lets all the air right out of the ball.
So I was like, well, this is an interesting diagram, but does it hold true when you do this formula and plug in the numbers using these numbers, like the meters times the meters? Basically, you take this one, take this number here, and subtract this number here, take that value and divide it by itself, essentially. Almost is how that works out when you do the math. So I'll switch the share screens here and show you what that actually turns out to be when I did it in the software here. Switch screens. It turns out to be this, more or less.
Whoa.
Because you can see I did it to scale, of course, but I took the 6,378,000 kilometers on the X and Y axis And in the Z value, I plugged in that formula, A or C minus A divided by A again. And it works out to 3.293. So in meters, and this is to scale, right? So essentially, you end up with a flat plane in a sphere that's been flattened down until it gets down to this value in a cross section with a thickness of 33 kilometers.
33 kilometers.
So take those numbers as you will, right? 33 ends up being the magic number.
Wow, right? Flattens it down to 33 kilometers. That is absolutely outrageous. But again, this is exactly what we expected. And, it is named the WGS-84 flattened ellipsoid datum for a reason. But the thing that they want to keep a secret is how much it's been flattened and to what point. So using the very specifications that are given that they will never depict ever, Chris actually, ran this through what is it, Blender or whatever it is, the software that he put in there, flattened it down, and bada bing, you got yourself a flat Earth map. Maybe even something a little more akin to, I don't know, I can't remember the name of the one map I'm thinking of. But bottom line is that is essentially what the WGS-84 flattened ellipsoid datum resolves to. Isn't that interesting, guys?
Very. I'm trying to think, because I thought always that 1/300 meant, that's the difference between a perfect sphere and a flattened top and bottom. But I've never done the math, of course.
Yeah, and it's very close to that 300 mark. So it's really flattened. And essentially, what that tells me is that 33 kilometers is essentially the surface features on the flat disk. That's what that's telling me. So, yeah, I just think that is really amazing. So just thought I'd throw it out there for your consideration. I will definitely put it in the show notes. People can look at it. But, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So, okay, Eru, whenever you are ready, sir, we will let you go ahead and do this. And hopefully Ben will get back pretty soon and we'll watch his thing. So go ahead and I'm giving you permission to share your screen, Eru.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
I'll
much.
allow it.
Yeah.
That is what I'm waiting for. Yeah. The Pope word.
It's quite.
Come on now, don't call me that.
No, of the share screen. Of the share screen.
Oh, the Pope with the share screen?
Yeah. Exactly.
Can I wear a fish hat as well?
Of course.
Okay.
You are the Pope, man.
All right.
You decide what is good, what is bad, So let me just
remember the Pope came from Argentina, by the way, and used to run the Jesuits there
yes,
10 years.
Yes, the first Jesuit,
yeah, thanks a lot.
Pope in the world. No, no problem, man. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Is a friend of yours?
Well, no, he's not my friend. That for sure. No. But he was living really, really near from my city, and it's a very, in fact, I show a picture a few minutes ago. He was
his house.
Yeah, no. Before he became a pope, he was, of course, like a regular priest. Mm-hmm. And somebody took him a picture, photograph inside the subway in Argentina, and the guy and the actual pope with the hand inside of the jacket.
Right.
Right. Yes, exactly. And that is a real picture, and that is completely real. I'm waiting for saving the PowerPoint project, but
I was just trying to get you to say Jesuit a bunch of times, because I know people play drinking games.
Jesuit.
Yes.
Yeah.
People are drunk all over the place now.
No, I know that, man. And in fact, if yesterday I was in the live show in my channel, and I'm starting looking into the new Artemis generation and the new spacesuit. But if you type space suits, if you just change this letter, it's like the new space suit. It's like it's the spacious, so something like that.
It's a spot for Jesuits.
Yeah, something like that, exactly, man. So let me just finish that. But I don't know if you saw this, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, he mentioned us again in one of his last podcast of Star Trek. Star
It is
Star
Star
Talk.
Trek.
Star Talk. Yeah. So did you listen?
No, I haven't heard it.
No, okay. I gonna just plain. It's about 40 minutes, and the question were
40 minutes.
40 minutes.
No.
Oh.
40 seconds. 40 seconds. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Here you go.
Instagram. Alexis from Hong Kong here.
Mhm.
When do you think we'll start sending world leaders into space? And if we could do that now, who would you send?
Ooh, did I do this on another episode? I can't do it too often, but I'm going to do it again now. Okay, you ready for this? Right, you're not ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I am
I
so
don't feel
ready for this.
I don't.
Hold on a second. You feel that? I'm ready.
You're feeling it. Okay,
Yes.
you ready? Which world leaders should we send into space? Okay, so first we should send all the flat earthers into space.
Okay.
Okay, I think they wanted that anyway.
So Kyrie Irving, not a world leader, but he can go.
Yeah, no, just so they can orbit the Earth and see that Earth is a sphere.
Okay.
And then you bring him back and say, "You happy now?"
Oh, for education.
Yeah, educate. I'm an educator, dude.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not trying
Fair
to get
enough.
rid of him. I'm trying to help him out.
Get rid of them.
No.
What are the dumb ideas you have? Get out of here.
You demonstrate the roundness of Earth. Okay. Next.
So what do you think, guys? You are going to be in the space maybe soon, you know?
Just went out of his way to.
Iru, you can
the
go.
question is different, yeah.
You can
But
go
I
and
don't
report
want
back.
to.
Okay.
I don't want to.
I,
man.
I want to
don't
go to
want
space,
go-
but I want to get scuba certified first.
well, that is you need that without
Absolutely.
any doubt.
It's funny because the question, is such a setup because the question had nothing to do with any of this. It was about, how because people are dreaming with the day when everybody's going to go in space. You just go down the street and take the space bus and you go up, or the space elevator, and you go up and you hang out there in the amazing conditions, amazing climate. Or if you guys either showed with the rockets minus 432, 0 Kelvin. It's great. It's great to be there.
It's a nice place. Yes,
It's a nice
like
place.
very-
So people are looking forward to it. And he's saying, what's the leaders? The leaders have to go first, right? Because the leaders are so good. We have such great leaders everywhere. That's why the world is such a great place, right, for people. And then he just has to throw this in. Yeah, first flat Earth. It's like it's not even the questions. It's a total non sequitur. So he's just, it's part of their propaganda stuff that they have to do. This is a comedian. He's talking with a comedian. Right, looking a little bit into this. Yeah, go ahead, Hiro.
No, and in fact, he enters in this philosophical and really poetic, round when because he was asked about the leaders, because he gonna start to talk about like, well, if all the leaders go into space, maybe they can see how fragile and no boundaries our world is. So maybe all the problems in our world is going to be solved.
Go away. Yeah, of course, because the leaders are going to do something, right? They're so capable of changing the world. Yeah.
But, but showing a picture, it doesn't matter if the leaders goes into space. Show him a picture, a photograph, a live video, and they must be assumed the same thing. But no, you need to go to space to transform yourself, your consciousness, your spirit is going to be transformed completely if you are out in space.
Yeah, that's the story Edgar Mitchell tells. Exactly the story he says. He says he got enlightenment and now he's a shaman scientist because he went to the moon and looked back. And
exactly.
That's when he got the cosmic vision. Yeah.
No, and in fact, the Grace Tyson, he's not an astronaut. So maybe he must go first than the flat earther and the politicians, because he's an educator and he's teaching things that he never saw. So maybe
on the other hand, it'd be nice to get the politicians to go to space, because then there's 0 Kelvin, they get frozen, and things would definitely get better.
Yes, that for sure, man. But well, that is one thing, and other thing is I don't know, because we was talking about the these blue bean things and all this kind of thing. There is like, I don't know if it's community. I don't know how is the name in English, Alashatra, but let me just really quickly. Alashatra is like the universal grain, and of course this is no, but this is all related with this new way to look into the universe and all the 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 white brotherhood with all the
Right, that kind of stuff. It's a
the
package.
yes,
Ascended masters. Yeah.
exactly. But this is a really big it's not the word company, it's a really big foundation. It's made by regular international people, but it's
kind of
really
like the Baha'i, the Baha'i, which is like this religion, is all religions at the same time as well.
Yeah, something like that, exactly. But it's all over the place. It has houses, temples, I don't know which is the name in English, but it's like a McDonald's, like a religion institution where a franchise, and exactly all over the place. But the fact is that this guy has like a few television channels, and of course they are also in YouTube. And a few months ago, this lady, which has some connection with government and things like that, supposedly she's a reptilian. And not just that, she addressed the fact that she's a reptilian because you can hear this this chapter in Spanish, in English. The original audio is in Russia, but supposedly, I am not going to put the audio, but supposedly before they start the show, he's gonna talk about like this girl. Please show us the reptilian eye. At will. Like okay, do it now.
With the second lid kind of thing, the extra lid of the eye.
So she's gonna look into the camera. And she's gonna say, "Okay, here you have it, right now."
What?
And right now. Yeah, man. I mean, this is real. This is
what
real.
the hell?
No, it's not real. The video is not real. The eyes, but the acting is supposedly is for all these
real
people. Exactly. And then she became so shame and look to the floor. And the guy, the host, saying, "Okay, you are satisfying those people that ask her to do that. Now you are satisfied." And supposedly, the bottom line here is that supposedly this institution are talking about like, okay, we have reptilian among us, but in the human body.
Bizarre.
So you are not going to detect it.
Wow.
So it is. So it's just CGI then.
Yeah,
like
man.
reality?
I can make I can make this in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, but the fact is all the acting and how there is. I'm talking about this institution. I am not talking just. It's a international movement with 100,000 of people.
Right.
They are all over the place, and supposedly it's financing by the regular people.
Wow. It reminds me of the other thing that Bob was talking about the other day, the Asgardia.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. This is called Alat Ra. And you have the moon, you have this Ra, like the highest Ra. And you have the sun and the moon and all these people. A lot of money is moving here. A lot of money. Project partners, television channel, project. Our motto is good in action. And and I mean, the Luciferian flame all the time, the spherical earth all the time, all over the place. But the fact is that when you're trying to, you must remember that this movement came from Russia. And when you go to the blue bean, and it's not blue bean, it's NASA blue bean.
Wow.
Because
It's
you
like
don't need to
yes.
forget that word at the beginning of this, because it's
Is it?
NASA Blue Beam project.
Isn't Asgardia also from a Russian guy who was a millionaire? They gave $100 million.
Yes, exactly. But when you read the document, if you take the time to read it, not just talk about the name of the project, but to read it, of course you're gonna have a little trouble because you have all these scratches in the text. But here is NASA Blue Beam project, which that is the first thing that you need to pay attention, because all over the place in internet, anytime that somebody talks about the Blue Beam project, they just mention Blue Beam project. They never put the word NASA at the beginning of the phrase. And then when you keep reading, you're gonna see that they talk about that the Soviet government and the Soviets here. The Soviets started to feed the computer with objects, but the bottom line is they talk about to work together, the United States and the Russia, to perpetrate this new relation.
Right, with this three-dimensional holographic sound projection show. It's a
complete machinery. Anytime you read news about meteorites, that is projecting in your mind, but it's just an article. But that is projecting in your mind because you're never gonna see that meteorite. But in indirect way, but you are confirmed the heliocentric model that allows super beings, extraterrestrial beings came to the Earth, because if a meteorite can get past and enter in our atmosphere and our world, well, you can do the same thing with spaceships and any kind of news, any kind of technology, any kind of image that represent the heliocentric model is an holographic projection in your mind, and it's supporting the NASA Blue Beam project. So what I'm trying to say is, when you see all these super big institutions moving a lot of money and doing this kind of BS, like the guy is asking directly to this woman, okay, can you please? So this woman right now must be in some lab, open in half by the scientific, because she's a reptilian. It's complete. It's insane. It's complete insane. I just want to show that before.
That's nuts, Zero.
So that cult is essentially now rolling in a new kind of storyline with reptilians who are already here, which is the same story what we were talking about before, that the alien invaders may look just like us. That's it. They sell that story. This Nick Pope guy who worked for the government and talks about all the UFOs and whatnot, and secret history, secret space program, all the stuff that probably just BS. I mean, secret propulsion, perhaps all these other machines, but not going to the moon and living there and all the stuff that they lie about, or that there were aliens in the moon spooking the astronauts and the aliens came here. And now this, right? Reptilians all over the place cannot, it's like putting people against people, because if it, so people get actually convinced of this, they're going to be paranoid. They don't know if their neighbors are reptilians trying to, put eggs down the street or something.
Completely. But the fact is that if you start to talking in our modern times about reptilians, of course, the first name that is going to come out is going to be David Icke, right? Yeah. So David Icke was the first guy that presented this idea of shapeshifter humans. But if you ask him who is the mother or the master command of all reptilian in our planet, he's going to tell you is the Queen of England. So everything comes to England, be your imperator. If you are a Freemason, you have the Duke of Kent, which is from the royalty of England. If you are a reptilian guy, your master is going to be the Queen. So it's insane, all the pre-programming that these guys put in our heads. It's easy to detect it if you are awake, but if not, you just
Exactly.
I don't know how
One thing I want to say about this, guys, is there's some people that are going, what's going on with this in the chat, and they're wondering, why we're talking about this, and the reason is because there is an agenda, guys, out there to make us believe in aliens and people coming here from outer worlds, et cetera, et cetera. And what we're seeing here is the development sociologically of this idea to get it into people's consciousness. And we believe very much that this is something that people really need to be aware of. It's not that we're buying into the fact that there are aliens and all this stuff. I mean, yeah, there may be people from outer, different parts of realms. I don't know. None of us really do. But one thing we do know is that the elite want us to believe this, and people need to be aware of it. That is why we are talking about this. So continue on here. I just wanted to point that out.
And in fact, Rob Skiba made a great series about the Blue Beam, NASA Blue Beam project, a few months ago.
Right.
So you need to be aware that there are these declassified documents talking about this, and you can detect it in real life because you go to McDonald's and buy a burger, and the promo came from outer space. You go to the school and everything is outer space. You go to the church and everything is outer space.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and it's somewhere you'll never go. It's somewhere where you'll never go. I mean, think about something in your life that continues to be shown to you constantly when it's completely detached from any reality that you'll ever experience, ever.
Yeah, and it's put. What is interesting about it as well is that it's pushed so far away. It's one of their tricks with math. It's such distance math that it allows only for super geniuses to understand, not common people. So that's one of the other part of the ruse, how it works, how they take it away from you, and then you're left in this position where you're inferior because they know how to understand and they can go there and they are powerful. Or in this case in particular, they are the reptilians. They have the power. You're not going to mess with the reptilian, right? And it happens to be just the Queen of England. So you just it's a game of power and symbols.
Exactly, man. Exactly. So it's at least you must be aware. Just that. Be aware because it's coming. It's not just a shock. We have the Space Force. You guys have the Space Force. That is the most blue beam thing in the last 5 years. Why you need a Space Force?
Where did that go though? Because we saw that they announced the Space Force, but where is the Space Force? Did they march around? Did they fly around? What did they do?
Nothing. They take the money and keep going. But
have they appeared? Did they ever roll out the uniforms of the Space Force or something? Because now they have the Virgin Galactic uniforms.
Yeah, but that is the NASA Blue Beam project. Became a part of our real life. That kind of things are the NASA Blue Beam project. No doubt about it. So I don't know if you want to. I'm going to start this, and I showed this before, but maybe we can. There are new people that came to the flat Earth, and maybe they want to try to understand how the horizon works, and the sunset, this distortion in the vanishing point. So I'm gonna repeat a few things that I mentioned before, if you don't mind. And
yeah, absolutely.
I'll allow it.
Oh, thank you, man. and please interrupt me anytime you consider that to translate my poor explanation, okay? Because it's gonna be better than me. But first of all, when you start asking about why things disappear in the horizon and why we cannot see from New York to Spain, and like I mentioned before, because
Portugal
is in front, of course. Right. But if you leave that to the side, first of all, we need to understand what is the most common sense of all, that we live inside of a fluid called air, and that's if you expose that to different temperature, which is something that occur all the time, you're going to have vorticity and you're going to have turbulence inside of that fluid, and any the light or the image that is projected is going to be distorted. Of course, with the distance, that effects is going to accumulate and it's going to be more and more and more visible than in front. That is something that everybody knows. When you go into the lab and you want to control this and trying to understand, these guys made this device that use carbon nanotubes that receive a different temperature, and you're gonna see the same behavior because this is so big scales that you cannot recreate in a lab in this super big scale. For that, you have the own nature. So when you go to just a tiny, experiment, you're gonna use the same properties to, affect the visibility, and you can see how that nanocarbons became invisible, but not just invisible. You're gonna have all these distortion in layers that represent the reality. So what I'm trying to say with this is that we understand that this phenomena, and you can reproduce that in the lab, and you can translate this into real life scenarios. So when you start looking all this image and just paying attention not to the lab experiment, but real life, and of course there are tons and tons of videos that show in the same behavior in the air. But all these distortions that you're gonna have is based on these properties, or at least that is how I interpret it. So when you go to the mainstream media with the, with the officials, institutions, and this was presented, or at least I see this for the first time in Rob Skiba research. Of course, they need to tell us that the atmosphere is full of water. Of course, vapor, of course, in less condensation than the water itself. But we have all over the place this, thick vapor in the air. So that is going to be a distorted mechanism, if you want to see in that way. You are following me? I am jumping all over the place, or?
No, so far so good.
Seems good.
Okay.
We're tethered.
Okay. So okay. Thank you, guys. So everyone see this video before, but this is a clear example that this guy are trying to transfer like a geometrical curvature, or better say, they want to transfer light behavior be based on all these properties to a geometrical curve that nobody see ever, and you cannot measure, you cannot detect it. You only can model it in terms of mathematical, but you are not going to detect it in real life. So this video right now is very, a lot of people know this video, but at the, like 3 years ago, when you're trying to explain to a person why the things disappear and change size and shrink and compress and expand and stretch, this is one of the best examples out there. And you can clearly see along the day, with different temperature, different winds, you're gonna see the entire city, and some point in the day you are going to lose completely. So maybe if one guy goes and trying to make an observation to detect the curvature of the Earth and make all the measurements and all the math, and maybe that guy, goes at that moment in time in the day, he's going to confirm his prediction. But if he goes, at this moment in time, he's gonna say, okay, there is something here that doesn't match the spherical model. So this is, like something that keep in mind. And there is this tropospheric propagation forecast that still is online, where you can, predict some of this behavior. And of course, they have this typical image of the sun in the horizon with a green flash and things like that. But you can go, and I made this video for the first presentation in North Carolina. That is why it's 2017. But you can go all over the place and check it, how it's going to react your observation in terms of the distance that you are heading for. And when you see this picture, in fact, you're gonna see really a nice way to interpret it.
Over there, when they showed, this photograph, is this a flat photograph, and what you see is light bending there, forming
It's
that
not,
arc?
no,
What is this?
it seems like the light is bending. It seems like that. I don't know which camera was taken for, but this is more like a property of the long distance in sky. It is, everything. When you see imagine looking from top to bottom, you're gonna see like just like a perspective. But
this is one of the things that is really interesting, trying to find out, because we saw that sprites photographer who got the sprites at 100 kilometers high from 500 kilometers away. So then the question is, when you're looking at close to the horizon, to the sky close to the horizon, what is the point that's immediately under there? That point, how far do you see in terms of the sky? That's what I'm wondering about. That I think is an interesting question, just because of that sprites. If the guy can film the sprites 100 kilometers away from 500 kilometers, he's seeing literally the sky in his view. He can see the sky which is above Florida from Texas, which shows us that it makes no sense when the NASA rockets start going down and it's still in full view, right? For instance.
Well, that is why I'm trying to show this. I trying to remember where I put it, the comparison. Let me just 1 second. But you can see this cloud layer here that has the same color of this in front. And for me, this is not bending like an arc. That is just like a perception in terms of how the photograph was taken, the lens, and the behavior of the light in the sky via long distance. For me, this is just a flat, circular flat. It's not like
right. So it's the distance being away from because of perspective. Then you get that impression there.
Exactly. And in fact, when you're trying to compare this, and maybe I have it here, I believe, when you compare this kind of situation with rocket launches, I don't know if this is the best example, but that was let me just see from here. Maybe let me. No, that one maybe.
How much stuff are they throwing up in the sky with that? That's so environmentally friendly.
Yeah, but it's something like this. For example, here we have the confirmation that this rocket is going to a straight path. If you look, if you see from above, but when you look it from the ground, you're gonna have this perception of an arching, But it's like a missile. It's like a rocket. It's going in the straight line, and it's like touching the horizon, but it's not going up. It's going in a straight line and meet
and that
with
one. It's going straight. You showed that one before. Yeah.
Exactly. So
the Chinese.
Exactly. So this kind of the perspective of the sky is a little different maybe than the perspective of the ground. And of course, on top of that, we know how the lights behave a little strange. Depends of the thickness of the atmosphere, the crepuscular rays, the anti-crepuscular rays that show completely this center point that the importance of this personal dome atmosphere,
right?
Because it depends of the viewer.
Right, the position of the observer, because things are getting far away from you along this kind of circle around you.
Exactly, because I remember that P. Brain showed this in the past, and he made just this drawing. But there you have that same arch in real life, and that is not because we are living in this spherical, or under dome. It's how the lights behave in these conditions. if you want to see like that way. But if you are a person inside, in the middle of this, you're gonna have these both perspective points. And I just trying to bring this to confirm for me this observation via P-Brain in that old video. So when I trying to recreate this, because there is not so many times when you can see not just the suns but the clouds cut off in the horizon with this kind of clarity, because all the time you may see just the sun, but here are the clouds touching the horizon, and supposedly the clouds are 3,000 meters or more above our head, and you are looking at touching the horizon right now and cut it off, and it has this perception that these clouds are looking like front of you, like the moon. The moon is not you all the time seems like it's looking at you all the time.
Right.
And you
that's the
also
kind of thing
have-
that gets people to think that the sun is between the clouds as well.
Yeah, exactly, things like that. So I trying to simulate this, and just in Cinema 4D, I create this cylindrical shape where I put some attribute of like it wasn't like an air, and I also use this map like you can see here, that has a base of in color yellow, then is a gradient from yellow to red to black, which trying to represent the distortion in terms of the I apply this to a refraction index factor, so you can have this tiny turbulence distortion like you see in real life. It's just that. So when you look into the real life, you're gonna see this kind of behavior when you see the perspective that the cloud are touching the horizon line. So what I did was put all these parameters and create all this simulation. It's just a simulation, but all the time I leave the sun, which is this tiny point here, this tiny sphere here, all the time moving above the cloud layer, and the cloud layer is this white rectangle with this tiny point. These tiny points are a particle system that the computer interpreted in volumetric particles. So it's not going to be just point, it's going to be like real clouds. And the computer is going to take that into consideration, and is going to render with all the properties of the scattering of the light inside of this volumetric cloud. So when I render that, immediately you're going to see that this is like in real life. I mean, the clouds are touching the horizon line, but when you look how I made up, they never touch the bottom of the of the grid.
Yeah, the orthographic view, right?
Exactly. But here with the camera, so this is an orthographic view without processing. So here you can see the gap between the horizon of the sea, of the ocean, and the clouds. But these tiny gaps, it's like 4,000 meters in comparison, in scale. It's not just like that tiny gap there. It's really a big one gap, okay? So when you start to, even the sun, you can see the little ball moving up. So I process again, and of course, because the light is moving, it's gonna take with the sun the light. So you're gonna have more yellow clouds there than the front here. Here is going to receive less light than the ones where the sun is getting, right? So after that, I'm start to making some optical zooms based on the camera. So let me just leave the video that, this is an optical zoom just in non-atmosphere world, which is the computer when you work. So that is why I always ask, all those guys that works on 3D software, and they trying to recreate this phenomena that they want to just take an object and bring it really far away and pretends that this object cut off in the horizon.
Right.
No, because
So you're talking about those people in the beginning of the flat Earth who said you always have to see the sun because whenever it is always above. So yeah, that was like right in the beginning they tried to debunk it, right?
Exactly, but they never process that with atmosphere. They just process that in the geometrical world, which
right.
like
Doesn't
AutoCAD
exist.
doesn't exist. So what I'm trying to show here is that if you are not computing the atmosphere, you're never going to have that same behavior as we have in reality. But when you start to compute this, yes, Bob, sorry.
I was just going to say the only time that they ever want to include atmosphere is when they want to claim refraction when, the supposedly things are being brought up from miles below the horizon. That's the only time. Other than that, forget about it. They're not going to use it.
Yeah, Newton had everything in a vacuum for a reason, right? They have to worry about the details.
Yes, completely. So look now, when I start rendering, you're going to have the sun, which is above the cloud layers. You're going to have touching the horizon limit. Even the clouds are touching the horizon limit. And the clouds is this white line here. It never touch the horizon limit. And in fact, you're going to have, like in real life, you're going to have this sharp and clear image of the ocean. And from this point to that point, you I don't know if you can see it, but you're going to have all these grainy, effect, which is produced by the accumulation in the air that the computer has simulated.
The compression of the space you had the Life is Short on, remember, Jaron? I thought it was such a great presentation.
Me too.
Because he goes detail on how it works, and he had his own testing with the balls on the corridor and stuff, and that made just so much sense.
Right, but where he really got it was talking about those distances, right? Because you may be able to see only a half mile or a mile of very clear water, and then after that, you've got 5 or 6 miles all bunched up together.
Exactly. In this small space, yeah.
So let me just continue. So when you keep processing the image, you're going to have all these tiny points which represent the clouds. This is volumetric cloud, like I mentioned before. And then I'm going to move the camera up and make I'm not moving the camera up. I just make a zoom. I just make a zoom to trying to approach, and you have the same behavior at the real life event.
When
you have the remember, this is the setup. Still is this we have this white circle represent the sun. This white line represent the cloud layer that come to our front. These tiny points, this tiny point that you can see here. Let me just move it back. These tiny points are the distribution of the cloud in the particle system. But when you process that with the atmospheric effects, you have the cloud touching the horizon. You have the deformation in the sun, and the sun, which is even above the clouds, touching the horizon line with the clouds. And
just
not
like
just
real
that,
life.
just like real life. And because the light of the sun, and in this computation is trying to match that, is so powerful, you're going to have this mix between clouds and the sun, give you the appearance of being the clouds in front or the sun behind, or all these
or the sun diving in the water, right?
yes. So here is the simulation. This is the simulation, and this is the real life scenario that I took as an example. And then you have some homemade experiments when you put and you have the same behavior, because of course this is just a jar with water, because you need to compress all the super big scale that nature give us in just a tiny space, because you need to reduce all the long distance effects to just a short place.
Right. You have to bring in the atmospheric lensing effects, like what Rob Skiba did, and also the Mitchell from Australia video that he just recently demonstrated. Of course, that was without even using any magnification effects. That was simply perspective. So, but
it's great.
So what I'm trying to say here is we have real life scenario, we have computer simulation, we have a homemade experiment. I showed early lab experiments changing the temperature in these nanotube carbons, and you can obtain the same observation that fits with reality. Now, let me just go a little more forward, because I want. Well, this is the example of Rob Skiba. This is from P-Brain or video. I put a few observations together just to reinforce this computer simulation. That because I like to do or compare with computer simulation, because our software today are really good, but don't forget that you need to maybe obtain the same kind of behavior just with real object, real experiment, not just the prediction of a computer, right?
Ido, one thing that comes to mind, have you seen the videos that David Weiss was sharing, that the sun basically disappears in the air, right? It just vanishes, goes schloofed. Is that something that you try to model? Because we have, something is happening where we get the sun disappearing in the air like that, which is just basically fades. It's almost like a Gaussian blur. And the other one, which is what you just showed, which is the SETI. No, go ahead. I'm just saying, because we see these two observations, right?
Yeah, but I have simulated that, and it behaves the same way.
So what's the difference between the simulation? I'm very curious to how do you make a set disappear? Yeah,
it's the same behavior. Yeah, and I'm going to show you.
Nice.
So what I'm trying to here, what I want to show is these effects where the suns mix with the clouds. So this is the setup, the same setup that I explained before, but looking from the top. This is the cloud layer, and it's look really tiny because I put the camera really, really, really far away. But here you can see the influence of the sun in the clouds, right? This is this spotlight. So it's an omnidirectional light, in fact. So the thing here is when you're gonna see that this white area is going to, go until the final, it's moving forward towards this ending line, which represent all the movement of the sun in our sky, giving us that appearance of the fade away light. So here you can start to see, for example, I stopped the light here, so imagine this, a really big scale with the sun moving in circles above us. This is just a tiny, super tiny portion of that circular motion. And even we don't have like a local sun, we know that we have these different observations based on of the observer. But I stop the light here and I just make a zoom. And what you're gonna have is you're gonna see that the appearance to have clouds behind and clouds in front of the sun, because the light is just in the middle of the huge clouds layer in our real life. Plus that the atmospheric effect is going to bend the image and give this appearance to all the time looking like a front of us. But this image, remember, this circular white dot, it's on top. It's completely on top of us. It's not in front of us. It's on top. So what I did is I trying to show this behavior that I mentioned before. So I make it a little more zoom, and here you're gonna have this, this appearance like, oh, this cloud's in front, and this cloud here is in the back of the sun, and the sun is in the middle of these clouds. But which is in the middle is just the lights that receive the cloud, but not the actual object. You are following me?
Absolutely.
So,
I just wish Bob the Scientism clown was watching this. You know, him being an expert in perspective and everything, right?
So I made the movement of the clouds also, left to right, and you're gonna have this feeling where this cloud is like penetrating, half penetrating, and the other half is going to behind. You have this, this cloud is like split in half via the light of the sun. But when I render this in the format of EXR, which is a format that allows you to process 32-bit of information, so you have a ton of gradient in terms of the high dynamic range image. So because I have that property, I can reduce the intensity of the sun, because we need to match our live observation. So when
it's
this
difficult
guy
because you need an air or something like that, like the gas is even modeled. But
yes, but here you can see all the different cloud layers of the sun, of course, and the guy, he's touching the obturador, which is the name in English, the aperture of the camera. Because right now it's almost night, but we know that it's day. So when he compensate the aperture, again the sun is blown away, it's completely bloom, right? So if I do that thing here in the computer software, we have the same behavior. We have clouds that always are in front, or better say bottom of that light source. So
it's the same. Looks
it's the same.
very close.
If I increase the light, it's going to glow so much that it's going to cover the cloud, and if I reduce it, it's going to give us the cloud in front, because all the time the cloud is in front, or at least is first than the sunlight. But the sunlight is mixed with the cloud layer, because the cloud layer has these properties that allow the light to scatter inside. So depends the condition of the weather, you're gonna have more or less penetration of that light inside the volumetric of the cloud, because it also depends of the density and thickness of the cloud itself. So this is just a homemade experiment that someone did in the past, but here you can clearly see how did give the appearance to be in front and be in the back, but it's just the intensity of the light. But the sun is always on top of the cloud layer. But when you put all these parameters together, you're gonna have that feeling of the being mixed, the light, the sun, the cloud, the perspective, the vanishing point, the atmospheric effect. It has a lot of things to have into consideration. This is the anisotropic behavior of the light, which this is like our personal dome thing, if we want to see that way. I have a light always on top, moving left to right, but we see the projection, and the projection is always looking at you. So that is why anytime you see the sun, it doesn't matter if it's the dawn of or the sunset, or a moonset or a moon dawn. I don't know which is the name in English, but you're going to have all the time the appearance that the moon is look to you, and that confuses people, of course, because you believe that the moon does this circular path and not the straight path above you, because you are really tiny and you don't have the feeling of circular motion on top.
We have simply the limits of our perception being a circle.
Right, and we're in the middle of a lens, essentially, and that's what gives us this personal atmospheric dome. And it's not just our eyes that respond to this dome. Telescopes do too, and this is exactly why, we talked about this before, why a telescope mount, oh crap, what's the mount I'm looking for?
Equatorial mount.
Yeah, the EQ mount, the equatorial mount on a telescope will track perfectly when stars are going across the sky or the sun, because it is being rendered into that dome. Essentially, you get a calibration point pointed towards the North Pole or the South Pole, and then it tracks across that rendered image, which is an apparent position, not a real position, but an apparent position. And this is what the globers, this of course is where the globers completely eliminate the idea of an atmosphere and any lensing effects. This is when it is no longer convenient for them to talk about, right? So as far as they're concerned, when it comes to looking up in the sky or the sun or the stars or anything like that, the atmosphere is not there. However, if you're looking off, a couple hundred miles into the distance, to Canagoo or something like that, well, then all of a sudden the atmosphere plays all the role in the world, right? I mean, this is the utter, yeah, it's the hypocrisy and the double speak, double standard bullshit that the Globers come up with for us. It's ridiculous.
This matches perfectly too to Dave's sun fade out, where you think that the sun is heading down and it's supposed to be eclipsed by the horizon, and it doesn't. It stops and kind of hovers there and then slowly disappears because the sun doesn't reach you anymore. And this is exactly what you were showing in the lower right-hand corner, which is the sun doesn't set and go below. The light simply gets too far.
No, and in fact, what you're gonna see here is the typically distortion that produced the green flash and the stretch and the squash of the sun just near to the horizon.
Right.
And I don't know if you know this, but I practice to pronounce horizon and not horizon. And you don't tell me nothing, man.
Very nice, Iru. Very nice.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Nice. I getting better each minute with you.
The next one is render engine, not render engine.
Okay, render engine. Okay. Thank you, man.
That's the next one.
Okay, thank you.
We'll work one word at a time.
So here you can have also simulated the anisotropic behavior of the light when we see that in real life, which is that, okay, that was the sun, not, well, this point is the sun. No, this point is the sun, maybe, but this one not for sure. So here you can have that. And, if you have these layers of atmosphere and all these properties that we mentioned before, you can even simulate it into computer, but it's just one single light source that spread and create this circular, continuously light that we see in our sky. And I just, doing this because we need to explain also this kind of behavior that we see in our sky. And
what about that one? It's so perplexing, complex what's going on there.
Well, that one looks just like the coffee cup caustic. Is what you see there.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So
where is this? Is this far north? Where did that happen? I've never seen anything like that in the sky. Have you ever seen that in person? That kind of thing?
Which one? The multiple one or
the multiple sundog one? Is it in Norway or something?
My opinion would be you'd have to be really far north or south to see the coffee cup caustic one. But as far as the circular one, the halo, David Weiss just sent me an image yesterday of one that he saw off the coast there.
Yeah, around like this. I never seen the halo around the sun and the moon, like it just when you're looking at it. But this circular thing,
typically, yes, that right. is very easy.
But this one, this is the one I'm talking about. That one just so odd, and you just had it. The caustic one.
Yes, exactly. So then what I did was, trying to show the people that the sun, that I set it on before, there is a straight line going to the horizon, and you're gonna have this like different stretches along the atmosphere layer, and that you can see that with planes when when someone from the plane show through a window how the sun when it's moving through the cloud layer is going to all the time change and morphing and having this wobbly feeling. And then when take the distance is going to give us that face towards toward us. And of course, if you go high, you're gonna see more sun. Then
that's
when
proof of a globe.
that's proof of a globe.
Uh-huh.
But this computer, this is a plain scenario. This doesn't have anything to do with a spherical world.
But I always heard that if you can see further when you rise up, that means you have to live on a ball spinning in space.
Well,
I was misinformed.
Yes, I believe that, man. So here you can see, this is just accelerated simulation, but when the sun disappears in the horizon, I rise up the camera a few meters, and then you're gonna have again the sun. So I make a zoom. I see the sun. Then the sun goes away beneath the horizon for the Glovers. So I go a little more up, and again it's going to appear more cloud, more sun, like we see in real life.
And to be clear, this modeling is done on a flat plane. In case people don't realize that.
No, all the computers, all
Right.
the 3D software assume that the world that there are inside is flat.
Right.
It's flat. It's not way. You don't have a 3D software computing a spherical model inside.
It's not an assumption, it's a reality.
Exactly. Exactly. So then I'm going to show the fact that NASA, this is a document from NASA, understanding the astronomical refraction, you're gonna have this idea where they give you, this is the observatory provided by NASA astrophysicist data system. So they warn you that if you want to look, with telescope and do astronomical observation, you must leave clear this 20 degrees gap. So because from ground to 20 degrees above the horizon, you're gonna have all crazy distortions. So you better doesn't take it into account, because the refraction is a plane parallel slab. The observer is at zero on the surface of a flat Earth. Refraction occurs at top of the slab of the atmosphere. The dashed lines is an extension of the observing line of sight, the angle between it and the ray, solid above the atmosphere in the astronomical refraction. So they knew that, of course, but they put into parentheses the word flat, the word flat Earth. They trying to make it spherical, that word. That is that you have parentheses. The parentheses
And
is
they can't show it on a spherical Earth. They just can't do it.
They can do it. So when you apply this, you're gonna have all these behaviors. When the sun start to really disappear by refracting itself, the cities are going to squash and stretch. Even in Antarctica, you're gonna have these illusions, not illusions, but phenomena. You're gonna have this guy with the bicycle disappear in the curvature of the air. You're gonna have the boat disappear in the curvature. We all know that this is refraction properties. But doesn't matter if you are looking into the ground or you are 3,000 meters above the sea level. It's just it's based on the observer, because here we are really high in the sky, really high, but it produced the same thing because it's like something personal of the camera or the eye or the telescope or whatever. It's just how
the personal
the
dome
physics
thing,
work.
right? The atmospheric dome. It's always going to be there, no matter where you are. You're always inside yourself. You can only have that perspective. So they calculated this zone here, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So let me just play again from the beginning and give me 1 minute. I need to open the door to a familiar member. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
It's like, what's that guy, Jared?
on-
Observable. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
How many times have you heard on your channels, that we flat earthers deny refraction? And it's absolutely not the case. It's when you account for refraction that everything begins to make sense.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if they want to talk about refraction as far as the looming, which is just made up, which is, this whole idea that things can rise up from behind the curve and show themselves to you just simply because of the nature of the,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's, who came up with that? Because that doesn't even. Yeah,
well, they have to have an answer for why they see, buildings across, Lake Michigan.
And the building are not bending away with the curve, right? The clouds also don't bend away with the curve as they go towards the horizon, as they should, because if they're oriented towards the center of the mass of the Earth, that's one of the things for me just so clear. I go here, I have good horizon here in Holland, and the clouds, they go down straight from my view. They don't bend.
No,
right? They don't tilt away.
No, even the bottoms of the clouds, the one where you see the most shadow is the cloud that's closest to you. And then as they go further and further away, you see less and less of the bottom of the cloud, which it should be the other way.
Right.
You should be able to see more and more of the bottom of the cloud as it goes off in the distance, as it arcs away and kind of points its top, away from.
Right. That guy that was filming the sprites, he couldn't have been filming the sprites coming straight down. He would have to be filming them from under, right? From 500 kilometers away, especially if there was a ball. Absolutely.
So, for finish, so what I did was I put this, this part of the document in overlay mode, and I put the camera inside of that atmosphere that I prepared. This is like if you are inside of this dome. So when you play, you're gonna see that the light is going to come in. This is the daylight, and when the suns go away, you're gonna have this stretch behavior like I showed before. So when it's going to touch the horizon, this is the gradient that NASA prevent you to, take into consideration for real observations, and then goes away and give the appearance of the, disappear behind the curve. But when you look this system from outside, you're gonna have this, this personal dome. I put this, just as a reference, like a building, whatever your imagination wants to assume this block is. And then it came the light with this atmospheric distribution of the light. So we are just inside of this tiny personal dome atmosphere. So if you right now are inside here and look back to you, you're gonna see the sun where touching the horizon in your back. Exactly, but it's all the way on top. Yeah. So when the light is coming and passing over us, you're gonna see that tiny light that take more time, and then it's like whoop, suddenly you have on top of your head, which is something that happened in real life. In real life, it's like, oh, look how long that the sun took to get the horizon, and suddenly is no more sun. So there
and if
you
you
have
move
it.
that light further and closer to that, to that personal atmospheric dome, you're going to see a light that propagates higher in that dome, and then you're going to see it propagate lower, just like we do summer and winter.
Exactly. So here you can see this is, of course, super accelerated. So for this guy inside his personal dome, now it became the sunset, but the sun is all the time off top, and you are not looking at the actual source of light.
Right. That's what people fail when they say, oh, well, the light doesn't get smaller as it moves away, or any of these things, but you're not actually seeing the light source.
Exactly. And in fact, here you can see it's never shrink until infinity point. It never does, because it's light propagating through a medium, through a layer of fluid. So you are not going to have that diminishing until nothing, like if you just see a car, which is something solid. If you put a car inside of a swimming pool and inside an ocean, and you're going to that car under the water taken away, the car is going to disappear before that reach some kind of horizon under the water, because all the medium is going to spread out the image, and it's going to just exactly. Yeah. So we have that phenomena, but we need a lot more distance because we are in the air and not underwater. So I believe this was the same thing about not this one. So in real life situation or real real life experiments. When you go to the lab and trying to mimic the Fata Morgana, you can do it. You can simulate which is the superior mirage, the inverse mirage, and just the regular Fata Morgana. But what is something that you must be to have in mind is that the image must be, or the object must be, always in view side. It never can be beneath something and rise up from nothing.
Right. You have to have line of sight.
Exactly. Line of sight. Thank you for
Right.
the word.
So that one that there was like ice that appeared to come from above is not coming from behind the curve. It couldn't possibly do that. You have to be looking at it, right?
Exactly. You have to be looking at it. It's never gonna be like, okay, that object is completely obscure, completely unseen, and because all these phenomena, it's rise up. No, you all the time the object must be in line of sight of you. Maybe you don't have the ability to see it because it's occluded by the haze of the atmosphere, by the perspective, by Portugal or wherever. Okay, but it must be. And in the flat world, we have the line of sight all the time.
Yes, we do.
Of course, if you have a mountain in front or have a depression in the ground, of course not. But if you have a depression in the ground, you're not going to see it either way. And on top of that, you need to have into consideration all the angular resolution, the haze. In fact, this boat, for example, with a fog camera, it's you can look it at 30 kilometers in the horizon, completely. And to, at the level of I believe it's 180 centimeters above the sea.
What kind of camera is that?
This is a military camera that is used. It used in industries as like puertos. ¿Cómo se dice puertos?
Harbors.
Harbors, yes. To to traffic, to boat traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see, you can see even with
it's monitoring. I think it's monitoring the harbor traffic. Is that what you're saying, Europe?
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, with a regular camera, you're gonna see the boat coming to you like this. So maybe you have some troubles with traffic in the harbor, and when you activate the fog on, you can see more clear the boat. But this is
gotcha.
30 kilometers, which is something really nice. And then we have this phenomenon of the Canigou, which you can see all the deformations that we've been talking the last hour of this topic.
Now that'd be great if you in your simulation, in your modeling, your computer modeling, if you put a mountain out into the distance and showed this, that when that sun goes off into the distance, obviously it's going to create a silhouette effect on the mountains on the ground.
Well, in the clouds, when I show the clouds, clouds is like the mountains.
Right. Same thing. Yeah.
It's the same thing. That is why you see these black clouds. But the fact here is that it's not, or I better say, it's a coincidence where, look how the sun stretch really down. And the only way that this thing happened, or I don't know if it's the only way, but at least in terms of simulated or trying to achieve in lab, is via the temperature. If you have more hot thing in the air, the light is going to slow down. So what I'm trying to say is, if you compare this picture, this is just an official picture of looming. You have the same camera, the same distance, and the same altitude, the same position, but different days with different temperature in the air. You're going to have the effect of the floating mountain, you're going to have the complete mountain, and you're going to have the inferior mirage
blurred
situation.
Yeah, right.
So what are you going to say? That, this is because the curvature of the earth that disappear and appear. So the same thing happened with the Canigou.
Yeah, and this is the basis of refraction science. People go and they set up camp in a place, and they look at the horizon. They set their machines just exactly like the Bay one, right? But there people have been doing this for 100 years, and what they show is that the light does not bend with gravity; it bends the other way. It's a total mess because that globe post failed big time when they came up with it.
Hey, guys,
Exactly.
hang on just one second. Ben, I noticed you were unmuted there for a minute. I get the impression you wanted to say something. I assume your video is up and everything?
Yes, it's up. I sent the link to you if you wanted to play it, but when you're ready.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I assume Eero is probably pretty close to wrapping it up, and then we will play that and call it a show. But God, Eero, this has been absolutely fabulous. You're just killing it here. And it turns out that Bob, the scientism clown, was in the chat, and all he could come back with was just to call flat earthers names because him and his stupid intellect just got buried with reality. So loving it, absolutely loving it. You're killing it, Eero. Great job.
Thank you. And I'm gonna finish with this. Remember that in terms of the frequencies, from the complete visible spectrum, you have the ultraviolet and you have the infrared, gradient. So when you go and create, transfer this into how the light behave in terms of the frequency of the light, the temperature, and things like that. This guy made these experiments based on these conditions, and he pointed a laser and he split between all the mirrors, and it's like a Michelson Morley experiment, but just not to determine the rotation of the Earth, but to determine how the light behaves in these changing temperature conditions. So here you have regular temperature of the room, and you're gonna have this light project at this altitude. So when he start to warm the air that surrounds the equipment, the light is going to go down. It's going to, instead of being here, it's gonna project down here.
Interesting.
Like this observation that we made is, you have all the ingredients if you want to understand why we cannot see from New York to Spain.
And the air is always going to be pretty much warmer closer to the Earth, obviously.
Exactly. Obviously. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, we saw last night the GoFest Eero was showing the rockets that go really high up, they get to 0 Kelvin almost, like it's minus 430 Fahrenheit, right? When you go up, you should be getting closer to the sun, but it just gets extreme. That's the coldest temperature I don't think ever recorded, I guess, or something like that, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And remember that on top of this, the sun is an electromagnetic source. So we have all these kind of strange phenomena because the suns can bend light, if you want to see it that way. So when Einstein, the prediction of Einstein that was confirmed because in eclipse you can see the light of the star bending around the sun, could be, but not because the gravity of the sun bend the time of space. It's because a magnet bend the light, bend the gases.
Right. Wow, yeah.
That's so.
It's just interesting because you can just see it all the time, like the magnetic field that you're showing. There you have light, turning around, right?
Yes.
All magnetic fields are like that. You have that other one that the magnetic field and the fairy is kind of something. It looks like a flower, like a lotus. It looks like life. So this stuff, it's incredible.
So, we have all the ingredients out there. So if you want to open your mind and study really, serious this topic, you're going to find that the object disappeared because the Earth is flat and all these phenomena happen on top of a flat Earth, not spherical.
Or you can be a glober and bury your head in the sand.
Exactly.
Beautiful, Eero.
So,
all right.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm stop sharing.
All right, and let me go ahead and let me flip my screen share over to the other one, start sharing and screen share. Right. Okay, guys. Cool. One thing I wanted to say, and we're going to play Ben's video here in a second, is in case you guys didn't know, I went ahead and restarted the Globebusters 24/7 Flat Earth feed. It is on the
Yes, I
Globebusters
saw it.
2 channel. And mods, if you would, spam the link in there for everybody. I will start it off here really quick by putting it into the chat. But it is on the Globebusters 2 channel. And, you know, it's going to be up from this point forward. We're going to add a whole bunch of new videos to it. If you guys would like to see, if you think there is a really good video that you would like to see on it, send me an email to bob@jeranism.com, and I will certainly take a look at the video and add it to it. But I really want to have a lot of just really hard-hitting, direct to the point, concise type of videos on there that, you know, we can all send our friends and family to say, go look at this channel, watch it for a while. It won't take long. You're going to be a flat earther after you walk away from it. That's kind of what we're looking for here. So it is up there, and yeah, super. It's playing right now. And Ben, I am going to bring your video up. Where the heck is it? There it is. It just popped up. Move it into the right spot. And Ben, do you want to introduce this and tell us a little bit about what it is about?
Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. You can just hit play. I think it's pretty easy to understand.
Okay, well, then I will just hit play.
But it needs a volume.
Oh, yeah. That, yeah, you think? Okay. All right. Okay, guys. So this is Ben's new video, and let's take a look at it. Here we go.
This is just an amazing flat earth proof that I wanted to share with everyone on Globebusters today. Go to this YouTube channel, Nouvelle Géographie Planétaire. I probably slaughtered that, but I'll have a link in the description. Watch the whole video because he goes into much more detail about the location and other evidence supporting the veracity of the photograph. But please go over there and subscribe and show your support for such an amazing feat. This new surface-to-surface photograph was taken at a record long distance of 326 miles or 529 kilometers. The previous record, surface-to-surface photograph shown on the Beyond Horizons website, was 443 kilometers or 275 miles. The new photograph we are going to look at today was from 326 miles or 51 miles further. Here is a Google map of where the photograph was taken. What makes this even more amazing is the fact that the target island location was only a height of 85 feet. The photograph was taken on top of this peak at an elevation of 3,212 feet or 979 meters. Here is the target location. It is an island off of Corsica with an elevation of 85 feet. You can add another 40 feet for the lighthouse. Here is the record-breaking photograph. You can see the little white lighthouse on top. The viewing direction also lines up with the photographer and the city in front, but you can watch the original video to see how everything lines up. According to the globe model, the target hidden height at an observation height of 3,212 feet and a distance of 326 miles is, and are you ready for this? 43,848 feet. The top of the lighthouse would have been only 125 feet above the water, and you can see it in the photograph 326 miles away. That is just impossible under the globe model. 43,848 feet should be hidden behind the curvature, and you can see a lighthouse at only 85 feet above the water. Like so many other observations, that ocean is flat. Ergo, the Earth must also be flat. Thank you, Nouvelle Géographie Planétaire, for sharing this amazing flat Earth proof. Thank you.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Goodness.
That is amazing. Holy Toledo. Yeah. Well, you know, and again, just another piece of the preponderance of evidence that, you know, which, you know, I was going to go into some of that stuff today, but, you know, we've a little run out of time, but we have
I wonder,
so much.
I wonder if Jay Tolan is eligible for one of those records.
Well, his is not surface to surface, which is a little bit tricky there.
Right. But he has some surface ones, right? But just not that far.
Not that far.
But you became an expert in this kind of explanations, Ben.
I love it,
I've
Ben.
been
Yeah, it's good stuff.
yeah, complete. Man, I've been follow your channel since like 2017 when we met in the first Flutter conference. But you have been so great research and make short videos presenting all the evidence and the measurements, and of course you leave open to those who wants to go more deeply to go to the official or original video. But you present this information like that. You became a master, man. Thank you for your time.
All right, beautiful. All right, Ben. Yeah, thank you so much for that video. That's incredible, as always. And just another piece of the preponderance of evidence, which at this point,
what's the globe attempt here, Bob? What's the best they got for something?
You're not seeing what you think you're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. How did Nathan Oakley put it? However he put it was absolutely classic. I about died laughing.
All right, clock.
Yeah, the clock. I see something. I say clock. At
right.
however many. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, Jaron covered it, and it was just classic. So,
what was the one with when he grinds the McWest?
No. This is something that he did when he was on Roxanne and Robin's show when he was being interviewed. But his response was classic. So gotta love it. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, we are going to wrap this show up. So I'm going to go around one last time with everybody and see what they got going, and then we're going to call it a show and be back next week. So I guess, Iru, let's go ahead and start with you. And what do you got coming up? Anything? And let us.
I'm finishing my participation in terms of the motion graphic things for the conference, so I'm gonna be a little busy with that. And in terms of the Flat Earth, this week was really busy because I have even yesterday I participated with Rodrigo with the guys from Brazil that they are organizing the FlatCon, which is the first Flat Earth conference in Brazil. And then we have with Geran and you, we have also a live show. I make one here in Argentina too in my channel. So I believe I'm gonna take like a tiny vacations of 2 or 3 days for finishing my work for the motion graphic of the Flat Earth conference, and then I need to trying to put all together my presentation itself. We are just around the corner of the Dallas conference, so I'm gonna be focusing more in that than maybe my regular stuff. Anyone who wants to support me or follow me, you're gonna have my Patreon channel, which is Patreon/Nur para Todos, or you can find me with the same name in YouTube. So I'm gonna be putting just tiny things, but nothing special.
Okay, beautiful. All right. Well, yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing you, of course, obviously in Dallas, as I am all of the Globebusters, and of course everybody November 14th and 15th in Dallas, Texas. The Flat Earth International Conference is coming up really, really, really soon. Gosh, not even 3 weeks. So it's coming up really quick, and I know that ticket sales are going crazy for it. It's going to be one of the best events ever. Robbie has really put together quite a show this year, and I'm just super looking forward to it. And okay, so let's go ahead and go around to you, Rodrigo. And what do you got coming up?
Oh goodness, just trying to get back on track. I have so much things to do, even for my work with music, and then a number of different streams that I have prepared, things that I've already been looking at, videos that I've been cutting to try to present, and then thinking about how to move ahead with this paradigm shift idea, like how we, I'm just thinking it on my own way. I'm going to start looking at all the information that's around me through the conversations that we're having at the lounge as well. Some of these shows, especially everything that happens after Amsterdam. So I'm going to start kind of trying to tell the story, write the story, not in videos or anything like that. And then go through what the information that we're going through in this moment, which I think it's a turning around moment. What's happening in Brazil and other places. and I'm keeping in touch with the Brazilians now every day. This is what happened last night. We had the conversation. I opened a channel, Terra Plana Geographic, which is a ripoff on National Geographic, Flat Earth Geographic, essentially, and it's only in Portuguese. So for Brazilians, so I'm bringing content from you guys to answer some of the questions they have, and then I'll be trying to do the same from the Brazilian side, because we have this very interesting geophysicist, a seismologist with a PhD, with peer review. He was a peer reviewer. He has he's a professor of the best university in Brazil, and he's a flat earther. He has some interesting kind of odd ideas that I don't agree, but it's something else that's going on that adds to it's quite different than the visions or the different models that have come up through the English speaking world. So it's interesting to see what can come out of this, the differences and the observations, because this particular guy, for instance, knows a lot about geology, and he says it works much better on a flat model. So just all these things that I didn't know they were going on because of the Brazil kind of explosion, just kind of caught us by surprise, and we got welcomed by these amazing people there. And basically, that's just put a whole new turn onto what I'm doing. And so I'm trying to get organized to make things go forward, because, for instance, the Brazilians, they want to get off the internet, not get off the internet, but they want to step out into kind of like what the Globe Light Tour is doing, and then produce materials, produce, books. And they have a magazine that's selling very well, the Flat Earth magazine. And me and Ido, talking to the organizers, they invited us to have a column there so it's four magazines a year. The first edition had 2,000 copies, already sold out. They're going to bring it out to the conference in São Paulo, and it's going to be 4 times a year. And we can all kind of, I'm doing the bridge, I'm going to write it in Portuguese, but I can bring information from all the stuff that I know that I've been looking at in the last 4 or 5 years from you guys. So, and we realize also in Amsterdam that there's so much there that everyone has been producing, but we need to kind of maybe get back and start, rethinking of different ways of packaging it, because we seeing that there's just tons of people coming up with the same questions from before, and we all have our different kind of takes on it. So as an anthropologist, I'm just going to try to somehow bring it all together and make sure that nobody's misrepresented. So quite a task. See if I can do it.
Awesome. All right, good. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. And it's too bad you can't make it to Dallas. I'd really love to see you there, but maybe next year.
Next time.
Yep,
Yeah,
maybe
awesome.
next time for sure. Beautiful. All right, cool. All right, so I guess we will come around then to, let's see. Who did I miss? I guess Ben. Let's go to you. I got totally lost on who I covered and who I didn't. So what's going on with you, Ben?
Well, I was just making a video, but Iru just actually covered that topic today, so now I have to revise it again. But I'm so excited for Dallas to hang out with everybody and meet a lot of the fans of Globebusters, and it's just going to be an awesome experience. I've had some down weeks, and so to be, I think, an uplifting experience to be among what I call my new family almost. But very excited for that. I see that Russia's right now is censoring the internet. They said they're going to actually remove the internet out of Russia, where it's it's going to just be based only on Russian internet. I fear that's coming here too. So I don't know how much longer we have before we can keep spreading these things, but I just love what we're doing right now. And thanks to everybody here on the Globebusters panel. Thank you.
All right, beautiful. Nice. Thank you, Ben, too. Yeah, I agree. It's looking that way because the world is waking up, and people are becoming wise to the deceptions. The elite don't want this to happen, and they don't care what it costs them. They don't care that Google or YouTube loses revenue. They don't care, because those are all sacrificial lambs, because they have a much, much bigger agenda in mind. And it is unfortunate that not only are there so many people that are unable to see it, but then you have the people that are on the other side that are actively working against humanity, that really should be ashamed of themselves. But whatever. I've preached on that topic enough. So, all right. So, Jaron, last but not least, let's come around to you. And what do you got coming up besides your great new show?
That's it. Well, just thanks to Ben. I love your videos. Keep up the good work, and glad to have you a part of the family, and love watching Iru and Rodrigo, everybody, and Bob. So it's been great, and just getting ready for Dallas, of course. I think it'll be here before any of us know it. We have Raw tomorrow night, and now the Lounge Show on Fridays at noon Pacific. So Raw tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific on TFR, and also on my other channel, Jeranism Raw. And then the Lounge Show on Fridays at noon Pacific, and never know who will be on there, and never know what we'll be talking about. So it's a fun kind of kickback show. So yeah, if you didn't catch this last week's, try to catch next week's.
All right, sounds good. All right, guys, and as for me, well, I'm just still going to be preparing for my presentation in Dallas. I have not only my own personal presentation, which is going to be on angular resolution and the inverse square law, except I'm going to go very deep into detail on it and show all the mathematics behind it. I may bore some people to death, but I think it's something that is so profoundly shocking, to expose using their own math, what we should be able to see, what we actually do see. It's going to be pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to it, definitely. And other than that, not a whole lot. I do want to say one thing. Nathan Thompson has messaged me during the show, and he wanted everybody to know that he is looking for a Mercedes Sprinter van. And he wants to do this because he wants to purchase it, and I think because he wants to do something like they are doing in the Flat Earth UK Globe Lie Tour. He wants to, paste the side of it with Flat Earth propaganda, etc., and go driving around and try and do what they're doing there in the UK and do that here in the United States. So he's actually looking for a Mercedes Sprinter van. He also wanted to mention that he has 20,000 Flat Earth flyers that he can distribute out to people. All they have to do is order them from him at flatearthflyers@gmail.com. And you can get the details from him at that point, going on from there. Other than that, as I mentioned earlier, we do have the Globebusters 24/7 Flat Earth channel online now, and will remain online on the Globebusters 2 channel. And that is about all I have, guys. So thank you much for joining us this week. Super Chatters, thank you so much for your Super Chats. Mods, thank you for keeping this a nice place to be. Trolls, you're never welcome. Trolls, you are never welcome. Just go away. Otherwise, we will remove you. So there you have it. All right. With that, everybody take care of yourself and be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Love y'all.